Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning to GEN.ERA Matchmaking event and Intelligence Market. We are really happy to host you here. We are really happy to be here with our partnership from GEN.ERA. So a quick introduction about this day. We will have today two parts. The first part on the market intelligence, the second part on the matchmaking. So plan and prepare your matchmaking for this afternoon. Before I will be quickly introducing the program for this morning. So also in two parts. The first part of the morning is the presentation of the project of the team. And also on the second part, we'll have an intelligence market presentation with a panel discussion on the 5 markets we have targeted. So without any further delay, I will start to present and to thank my team at Genopole. So with my colleague Alain Luzardi.
Nice to meet you.
And my head of department, Laurent Pépin.
Hello, hi everybody.
So we're really pleased at Genopole to host this event. This is really a crucial thematic for us. And we are also really pleased to welcome GEN.ERA partnership and our friend from all around Europe. So before we start with the presentation for each member or partner, I will start with a quick presentation of GEN.ERA objectives, of GEN.ERA project, of GEN.ERA trends. And with that, I will introduce you to our specific project. So the GEN.ERA project is a COSME project. It's a European-funded project started in September. We have started to work around an alliance for genomics. The idea, as you can see, is to create, with 5 European clusters, an alliance around this thematic of omics. We want to propose to the companies opportunities overworld in promising international markets. We have with us 5 other European clusters. So from Netherlands, host Netherlands, we have also from Finland, Turku Life Science. We have from Tartu Life Science Cluster. And we have from Napoli, Campania Bioscience Cluster. So what do we propose? As you can see, the mission of GEN.ERA is to allow companies to go overboard, small companies from startup and SMEs. The mission is to bring to small and medium enterprise offering niche technologies such as omics, the possibilities to reach some markets, promising markets such as China, USA, Japan, Australia, and Singapore. So we have structured in 3 objectives. The first one, we are to create a shared vision, an alliance around this genomic value chain that I will be presenting later. On the second step, and here is the results of our work, we'll have an objective of identifying the most promising international countries. And on the third steps, we'll have the preparation of the companies to go and to compete in those markets. So just to be precise, this GEN.ERA project is the first trend 1, and later on in 1 year we want to apply for the next trend, which will allow us to prepare exploratory missions in those countries that you will target, you will select, with us. So GEN.ERA came from an observation that we are stronger together. We are stronger together, we are stronger in Europe if we go together in international markets. So we have structured this partnership, as I told you, and we have introduced our partners. We have structured the value chain around this 5 alliance cluster and trying to identify interaction and partners opportunities between our companies, members. This structure, we have been structuring this value chain around 6 steps. So representing the omics process, the sampling, the sequencing, the exploration, interpretation, application, and support. I'm really sorry because it's rather small, but the idea is really to position each of the companies in the corresponding value chain. So this work has been done at the beginning of the project, between the partners. We have interviewed, we have worked with the companies to position them in this value chain, and to see if there would be some complementarity products and possibilities of opportunities in between them. So as you can see, you will in this project you will have the Genopole value chain, 16 companies positioned on these 6 steps, and then on the other scheme you will have the other clusters and the complementarity between our different companies. The second part and the second objective correspond to the benchmark. We have pre-selected five markets of interest, huge, strong market with high potentialities. The USA, Australia, China, Japan, Singapore. This selection has been done by interviewing each SMEs to understand the possibilities, their interest, and how we can help them and in targeting the trends in these specific regions. At the end of this process, and we hope we'll have some answer by the end of this day, thanks to our partner from Innovatio Eucharist and your participation, we'll have to select 2-3 markets in between the 5 ones. And finally, the action, the roadmap will end this project in 2022, next year, in August. What GEN.ERA can do for you, GEN.ERA aim, as I explained, is to help your company to internationalize. We know that we do not always have the possibilities or the resources to go alone overboard. So that's why we want to provide you with all the elements to prepare your soft landing in those countries. So by entering GEN.ERA, you will enter in a solid and operational network to increase first your European visibility. We want also to reinforce your competitiveness, gather market intelligence for your internationalization, and receiving training to explore the identified target markets. So as I explained, the partnership is composed of Genopole, Campania Bioscience, Oost Netherlands, Tartu Biotechnology Park, Health2Co. And we have our associated partner with us here today. Thank you very much. And the other will also explain their organization. So with Medicine, Alizei, CNGE, Trentino Silvupo, Innovazione, Trentino. I thank you. Now for the next part, we will have a quick presentation of each of the partner. So please start to proceed. And we'll start with Genopole as a coordinator. Thank you. So Alain, the floor is yours, Alain.
Thank you.
Up. Back, please.
Okay, good morning. My name is Alain Luzardi.
Alain, yeah.
I'm one of the project managers of business and partnership department at Genopole. I'm part of especially the European team. We help Genopole and members to find new European project and European fund to finance the international development. Okay, so it's a pleasure to quickly introduce an overview of our biocluster, Genopole, French bioclusters. Founded in 1998, Genopole is the oldest biocluster in France. Is located close to Paris area, and is a key player in the field of biotechnologies, biotherapies, and research in genomics and genetics, and last but not least, now in food tech. Okay, is a no profiled, let's say, organization. So around 80% is coming from public funds, with strong bands with regional, local, national authorities and stakeholders. Our mission is funded building and coordinating, so the research clusters in health and environment, promoting and supporting the growth of companies with support business development and other services, reinforcing the techniques and also the teaching and training in collaborations with other universities, locally, specifically, like Paris-Saclay, and organize scientific events at the cluster and disseminating all the cultural informations. Sorry. Genopole is today a very mature and fertile life science ecosystem, employing more than 2,300 people in the campus. Genopole hosts Insight is very specific for France. Several public research centers offer platforms, and share his campus with several scientific business school. Okay, we have also different connections with an hospital close to here, and also we raised a lot of money in the past years. Genopole also have his own laboratories to help scientists and startups to create innovative solutions and different incubators. We have 77 companies located on site, specific laboratories, also working in different fields, from innovative therapies to bioinformatics. And one of the interesting things is that we are offering different services. Also, we are working in specific networking and partnerships with the university, with key and major networker like ECCP or OET Health or CBR, for example. We have different cooperations with investors, with national, European and international bioclusters and scientific community. And we have also very important collaborations with regional hospital and also research institutions. As you can see, to complete this short presentations, our aim is to become one of the world scale clusters on the next 10 years, and to contribute to European ambitions to structure emerging domains like personalized medicines, biotherapies in particular, bioeconomies, and digital genomics. This is why we are now speaking about GEN.ERA is one of these projects on these topics. Thank you very much. We are open to any question today if you want on the matchmaking. Thank you very much. Sorry for the time.
Thank you, Alain. Thank you very much. Roberta, if you want to present company bioscience, we will have the other three.
Be very fast.
Thank you very much, Roberta.
My name is Roberta Lauro, and I represent the cluster Campania Bioscience, which is the regional cluster on life science, and it's operating. It's gathered together 7 research centers and universities, and 1 tech transfer agencies, and also 50 companies operating in the field of pharmaceutical, nutraceutical, but also genomics and bioeconomy. And we have many fields that we cover, and we have many active projects in many fields. And there is the slides, okay, in many fields, and at regional, national, and also European level. But for a total amount for more than 40 million euros. And to reinforce our mission, so we are part of strategic partners such as Alizé, but also Council of European Bioregion, and EBN, that is the European Biotechnology Network. And I have to say that to be part of the GEN.ERA project is very challenges, because we aim to build a genomic alliance, and that's why we brought aboard partners such as Trentino Sviluppo, but also Alizé and Change, and other strategic partners that are new entry, such as EEN, that is the European network for enterprises, and also the IC Italy, that is the governmental agencies for internationalization. That's okay. Thank you.
Roberta, thank you, Roberta. Very quick, efficient presentation, which is always important and a challenge. Nick, could you come introduce us a bit about your organization? I will now put online your presentation. I'm sorry, takes a bit time. Yeah, I will. Thank you very much. Okay, so on the diorama, and then the mic is yours. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. I'm very happy to be here today, to be able to present OSSL here at this GEN.ERA project event. First of all, my name is Nick Wellink. I'm a project manager, business development health at OSSL. We're a partner in the GEN.ERA project. OSSL is what we call a regional development agency for the eastern part of the Netherlands. We are funded by the provinces of Gelderland and Overijssel and the Ministry of Economic Affairs, so we are publicly funded, and our mission is to help SMEs be successful in their innovation and economic growth. So we support them, we help startup companies to be successful, we attract new companies to our region, we help companies from our region to grow and to internationalize, and we do a lot of support on innovation projects and innovation processes together with all these companies. And most of the time, the projects we are involved in are European funded projects. For example, like this GEN.ERA project. As I said, OSSL is supporting SMEs. We do that in the fields of innovation. We support them in business development, developing projects, developing new collaborations between partners around Europe, you might say. We help them grow, we help them be successful. It could be that we are helping a startup or spin-out company to get their first funds to be in market, but we can also help growing SME companies to be successful and, for example, to be able to go abroad and to be an international successful partner. And that's also something we have a specific department in. We have 4 fields of attention that are very important to us. We're working in the food, the technology and the energy sectors. And the 4th one, of course, is the health and medtech department, life sciences. And that's the reason we're partnering in the GEN.ERA project as well. There are a lot of companies working in our biomedics and genomics ecosystem in the Netherlands. Two I'd like to point out, of course, are our universities. We have the University of Twente with the TechMed Center, and we have the Radboud University with its medical center, which is also very much focusing on genomics research as well. And we have a lot of companies surrounding this, and they're very interesting. If you would like to know more about these companies and what we as an organization can do to you to get into contact with one of these companies, please let me know in the matchmaking sessions later today. And I believe that's really important. Please have a look at our website, for example, on the GEN.ERA project website, but also visit us at LinkedIn, and we can get connected, and perhaps we can do something within the boundaries of the GEN.ERA project, or perhaps in some other project. We'd love to be of any assistance, so thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you for your presentation. It was really interesting, and I'm pretty sure that everybody will look at the host website now that you did. Okay, Trine, do you want to come here? Unfortunately, Sven Perkel were programmed today, but Trine will be representing Tartu organization. So Trine, I will now put your presentation online, so it will be easier for you to introduce your organization. I will give you the mic. and then, perfect. Okay, so we can click then.
Yes.
Thank you, Trine.
Hello, good morning. My name is Triin Vakker, and I'm from Tartu Biotechnology Park, which is a science park from Estonia. We are also partners in GEN.ERA project, as the speakers before me. And yeah, am I? Do you hear me? Okay.
Just keep it close.
Okay. Yeah. So, as I already said, Tartu Technology Park is resided in Estonia, in a small town Tartu, and we are concentrated on giving support to local SMEs and companies from the biotechnology and health sector. And as you can see, our mission is to bring those players more closer together to the academical side and to the supporters from this field. So our goal is to develop the sector, increase competitiveness, provide also infrastructure and support in this business development, and also promote international cooperation. So we are, as I've already said, we are resided in Tartu. We have there a small campus or a small building where we provide infrastructure to the companies that are in our network. So here is the short list of the main companies that we are supporting right now. And our services would be helping the companies to progress, and perhaps some of the topics that we are helping would be preparing project applications, trying to bring companies together and and help them to collaborate, also find cooperation links outside of Estonia and in the region, mainly in the Baltic Sea region, but also outside this region. Also finding investment opportunities and organizing events as well. So, yeah, I would skip a few slides because they are perhaps not relevant today. But yeah, we are also cooperating in several projects and collaboration networks, like also mentioned GEN.ERA, but also EIT Health, that we are a local risk hub. We are part of some of the Baltic Sea and European networks like Scanbalt Bioregion, Submariner Network, and also Estonian Connected Health Cluster, which is actually containing most of the players in the field. Yeah, that's about it. We have a small team there in
Most important is the team, right?
Yes, this is our team. But yeah, thank you for listening, and you can always check the GEN.ERA website also, and our website, which is biopark.ee. Thank you.
Thank you, Trinh. Thank you, Trinh, for your presentation. I think it was also Tartu is a key partner for us. As you know, Estonia is one of the first countries to have this genomic innovation in front. The last, but not the least, Turku. Turku is online with us. Turku couldn't be present on site, so we will have. Do we have Turku online?
Yes.
Yes, Teppo. Thank you, Teppo. Can you hear us correctly?
Can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. The floor is yours, Teppo. I don't need to give you the mic. I cannot,
okay.
Anyway.
Okay. Hello, good morning for everyone. My name is Teppo Laaksonen. I come from Turku Science Park. In my presentation, I will give you a short view of our area of Finland healthcare industry, and then finally Turku Science Park, which is the company I'm working for. So health technology and health life science industry is very important for Finland generally. It was done market search that revealed that during 10 years period of time, the added value of business related to life science companies increased 80% during the period of time 2008 to 2018. At the same time, the other industry mean value decreased 3%. Then we are located, Turku is located in southwest corner of Finland. We have very good connections to railway, airplanes and ships everywhere globally. And we are not only the city of Turku, we have 10 municipalities outside of Turku that are forming the Turku business region. We have here 6 higher education units. We have 3 universities here. The oldest in Finland, the University of Turku is located here. We have the only Swedish-speaking university, Åbo Academy, locally, and then University of Applied Sciences. Life science industry is very important to Turku. We have more than 100 life science companies here. More than 50% of the business based on life science companies is done by the companies located in Turku. In pharmaceuticals, 75% of export business is caused by companies in Turku, and 50% of diagnostic export is done by the companies in Turku. And also in development and innovation work, out of 22 drugs that have been developed in Finland to global markets, 21 of those have been developed in Turku area, research groups and companies based on Turku. just few companies that have been very successful recently, and they are also Abacus, Perkin-Elmer Heides. They are related to genomic business also, and due to this COVID pandemic, they've been done very successful business, serving PCR assays and antibody assays. Then some research groups and organizations in Turku area. But then Turku Science Park, we are a partner in GEN.ERA project. We are the only development company in Turku area. We are owned mainly by the city of Turku, and our main objective target is to help the local companies in starting their business, in accelerating their business, and then going to global markets. We have different industrial areas. We are more than 60 people working in Turku Science Park. And then we have health team that is aiming to help the life science companies. We have programs for starting companies, and then we have, for example, ProHealth Accelerator is an accelerating program to help companies to speed up their businesses. And then, of course, one of the main topic is internationalization of the company to going into global markets. We have several projects that are targeting to help companies to go markets outside of Europe, Asian markets, the US markets, and so on. We are also coordinating. We have this kind of triple helix kind of operation. We are coordinating the collaboration between universities and companies, but also the collaboration with public sector, which means the city of Turku and everything that they can give to companies and help companies in order to grow in the business. So that is the second, let's say, important activities that we have. That's all from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Teppo. Thank you very much. That's all, but that's a lot to say about Turku region. I hope you have learned a lot about the ecosystem. Teppo will have from Turku will have Abomix, a company that will do a speed pitching about the technology. A quick reminder for those that just join us. So the program is in two parts. On the morning, we had this presentation of GEN.ERA project, the partners, thank you. We'll have then the associated partner later on the morning that will introduce their respective organization. But now is the time for the speed pitching. Two companies have accepted to speed pitch. So we have Abomix, represented by Walter Rönnholm, from Turku Life Science Park, that will talk about its technology. And we have Philippe Jaïs. Philippe Jaïs is also a member of Genopole. Philippe Jaïs will explain also a bit more about its technology, the C3P3 technology, the first ever artificial expression system for synthesis of RNA in eukaryotic cells. So I'm not really competent to explain in detail, so I will count on Philippe Jaïs to be more precise on its specific company. Do we have Abomix online? Do we have Walter Rönnholm online? Not yet. Okay. So just a quick reminder also on the program. We'll have later on the second part of the morning. We'll have an emerging market presentation from our partners of Eucharist, and then another part with a panel, a round table, as we say in France, with the representative for each of the market countries that we target. We hope that it will be, and I think it will be a really productive talk to know and understand more in depth the markets of the countries. But the technique says that Abomix is online. Walter, welcome. Can you hear us?
Hello, thank you very much. Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you. How are you, Walter? How are you?
I'm excellent, thank you.
You're excellent.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Walter Renholm, and I'm the CEO of Abomix. So we are part of the Turku business region medtech cluster that Teppo mentioned previously. I have to apologize. I just recovered from a flu, so my voice is a little bit coarse. So please bear with me if I'm coughing. I should be okay, but just a word of warning. So I'll speak a few minutes first about pharmacogenetics, and then a little bit about what we at Abomix do to make pharmacogenetics a simple tool for doctors in their daily clinical work. So what is pharmacogenetics? Pharmacogenetics, as its name implies, is the science that combines genetics with pharmacology. And my genes dictate how I react to a certain medication. And this is individual for all of us. If you think about how medication is used traditionally, we have a large group of people with the same condition, and we give them all the exact same medication. Although all doctors know that the response on a certain drug is individual for all of us. And we know that some people, most people get the normal drug function as expected. But some people get a decreased drug function, other people get an increased drug function, and in the worst case, some people get no function of the drug at all, or severe side effects, adverse drug events. So how can we use pharmacogenetics to make medication personalized? It's actually rather simple, because with a simple blood test, we can check the genes, 24 genes to be more specific, of a patient to get the report which shows exactly how the medication should be adjusted for that medication, for that patient in particular. So the process goes that we take one patient, we take the blood test, analyze the raw genetic data, then we at Abomix give a report, an individual precision medicine report for the particular patient. And then if the patient has what is called a normal metabolism, the report states that you can use the normal medication and dosage. If the function is lowered, then typically the dosage is increased. If the function is increased, on the other hand, then the dosage is lowered. And in case there is a very poor metabolizer or an ultra-rapid metabolizer, depending on the medication, then the recommendation is to use an alternative drug. So personalized medicine. And pharmacogenetics have been known for decades, but it's a disruptive technology. And why is disrupting medication right now? The reason behind that is that traditionally, genetics have been very expensive. If we go back 20 years, the cost of sequencing the entire genome of one person cost $100 million. Today, that exact same sequencing costs $1,000. And for pharmacogenetics, you don't need to sequence the entire genome of a person, but only 24 genes or so. So the cost is only a few $100s or euros. So one common question we get from doctors is that how many of my patients have a differing drug response because of pharmacogenetics? And it varies a little bit depending on the population or ethnicity. It's different for Finns and French people and different people in different countries. But as a general rule of thumb, this research done in the USA by the Mayo Clinic tested 1,000 patients, and they tested for 5 genes. And out of these 1,000 people, 1% had all 5 genes in the normal region. So actually 99% had at least one differing variant in one of the genes. So in a nutshell, it affects almost everyone. Another typical question is, what drugs does pharmacogenetics affect? And there are hundreds of different drugs. But to be specific, on this slide, we show you the antidepressants used in Finland. And here on the left, you can see the top 10 antidepressants. And we've highlighted the ones which have a pharmacogenetic effect with yellow, gray, and red, and the ones that do not have a pharmacogenetic effect with green. And as you can see, out of the top 10 medications, 6 have red or yellow, which means significant relevance, and yellow means intermediate relevance. And gray means that there is some relevance, but it's not necessarily clinically relevant for all patients. But in a nutshell, 60% of the top 10 antidepressants have a significant or intermediate pharmacogenetic effect. So what do we do at Abomix? We make pharmacogenetics a simple tool for doctors in their daily clinical work. We basically have two solutions for this. One solution is a personalized report based on a blood test, and it's about 40 pages long. And here is what one page looks like. This is actually my personal report. And here you can see with the same colors as in the previous slide, we have some green medications, some gray medications, and some red medications, and some yellow medications. If you look at this in more detail, let's say I'm diagnosed with depression, and my doctor considers using an antidepressant called escitalopram. Then my personal report says, consider an alternative drug. Very simple and easy for a doctor to use. Okay, let's take a look at the next medication. Amitriptyline, another antidepressant. Also yellow, because the recommendation is to consider a 25% reduction of recommended starting dose. Very clear and simple to use for the doctor. In addition to these reports, we also provide databases which can be integrated into EHRs and other healthcare IT systems in order to support doctors in their daily clinical work. Here's one example where the doctor has written a medication, Cortisone Comp, which includes codeine, and here is a red icon indicating there's more information about the pharmacogenetics of this drug. And then you can, of course, also get this patient-specific information. Finally, a little bit about the scientific evidence behind pharmacogenetics. There is strong evidence showing that pharmacogenetics gives better clinical outcomes for the patient and better cost efficiency for society. And this is the case, particularly in the treatment of depression, polypharmacy in geriatrics, coronary heart disease, and stroke. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Walter. Thank you for this re-inspiring presentation of Abomix. I hope we can get to know more, maybe in the matchmaking session in the afternoon, if you have some opportunities there. But it's really great to have you here, and it was really important for us to have you. Since how long has been created Abomix? I haven't...
Abomix was founded 8 years ago, in 2013.
Okay, and you are still in Finland. Have you developed somewhere else in Europe or internationally?
Yes, we are international also. For example, in Austria, in the Netherlands, and we also are in the process in several other European countries. But of course, within the framework of GEN.ERA, we are looking outside of Europe also.
Okay, and a last question, and then we'll switch to the other guest. What country do you think is the most promising for Abomix internationally? You know, we have these 5 countries. We have targeted at least these 5 countries: USA, China, Japan, Singapore, and Australia. Do you have an idea or a view on what could be the market that would better suit to Abomix objectives?
Right now, we are looking at Japan, Singapore, and Australia. So one of those countries, or 1 or 2 of those countries, is our focus.
Okay, this is perfect. So I hope you will learn a lot in the next intelligence market by PathV Jane, and also in the panel discussion, because we have guests from Singapore and also from Japan. So it will be really interesting to get to know better and have an insight of those 2 countries. Thank you very much for your intervention. It was really interesting, Walter. And I will now go for the next guest. So Philippe Jaïs. Philippe Jaïs is in Genopole for a long time now. Not so long, but he has always been really really interested by what we do here and also by GEN.ERA, involved since the beginning into GEN.ERA project, also looking for some international opportunities for Eucharist. Philippe, are you with us?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone.
Okay, great to have you here now, Philippe. So, what we think about today? You have 15 minutes to make a presentation of Eucharist. Do you think you can make it?
Yes, thank you. Sure, of course. I can make it. And by the way, I am part of Genopole even for a longer period of time, you may imagine, because I was part before Genopole exists of GenSet, long time ago. And GenSet was one of the founding companies for Genopole.
So you are one of the pillars of the ecosystem, I would say.
Pillar. Hope so, yeah. Okay, let's say that.
No, yes, you are.
Okay,
yes, you
thank
are.
you very much.
Thank you, Philippe. Take your time and explain really in depth your technology, which is, I'm pretty sure, will interest everybody in the audience. Thank you, Philippe. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So thanks a lot. So my pleasure to introduce today Eucharist and make this presentation and to give me this opportunity. So let me give you some ideas regarding Eucharist. So Eucharist is an unlisted company. We are French, as you certainly understand from my terrible accent. And of course, the company is part of Genopole, but this was said a few seconds ago. We were founded now 10 years ago to exploit the applications of a specific technology, which is really, I would say, very fashion today because it's strongly related to mRNA, messenger RNA, and I will explain what it means. Of course, this technology did not exist. We developed that from scratch, and we are focusing on the therapeutic uses of this technology, not only for gene therapy, I'm going to explain what it means, but also for vaccination. So to keep that in mind, this is what we are going to explain is non-viral gene therapy. It's non-related to viruses for its uses. This technology is currently used only for gene therapy, but in the future might be extended to other applications such as bioproduction. So the mission Eucharist, very, very simple. Focusing today on the applications in gene therapy, initially on the treatment of liver disorder, but can be extended because that's a sort of generic platform, sorry. So it can be extended to other therapeutic area, but today really focusing on liver disorder. The most advanced drug developed by Eucharist are today at the CMC phases and entering, I hope, next year in the regulatory preclinical phases. And this technology has been developed and adapted to vaccination, of course, due to the current issue, the pandemic we are fighting again, and which is now fully ending, I would say. Anyway, this one is finishing, but who knows about the future. So let me explain what it means in terms of technology, because technology is really critical for Eucharist. As you understood, we have developed initially an artificial expression system. Why an artificial expression system? Because the expression is really critical for the effects in therapeutic, for the effects in bioproduction, for the efficacy of a system. And in fact, it's limiting. So what I mean by that is if you want to synthetic gene therapy usually either viral or non-viral, one of the key limitations is the efficacy, because you don't produce enough messenger RNA and therefore don't have enough biological effect for either therapeutic, either bioproduction, whatever you want. So we started with the development of a first artificial expression system that is named C3P3. C3P3 is just an acronym explaining what means what is the third generation of a system. What is it exactly? It's very simple. It's an artificial expression system based on artificial RNA polymerase you can see, which is this protein just in the middle. And this artificial expression system, this artificial enzyme, contains several modules and is able, in a cytoplasm of a cell, which is quite unusual, to recognize specifically its own promoter on double-strand DNA templates and synthesize, therefore, the mRNA you want, meaning not only the mRNA chain, which is something quite simple to synthesize, but also the key modifications such as capping, polyadenylations, and many others, which are really critical for the biological activity. And this is the key point, not only making the mRNA chain, but also making the modifications of the mRNA. If you don't have them, it is not recognized by the translational machinery, meaning that you don't produce the protein you want. So this system, based again on this artificial enzyme, is able to synthesize by its own in a cytoplasm of a cell the mRNA you want. When you want to use it in living cells, you initiate the expression of the enzyme. So it is done, you initiate it using DNA template, of course. It's initiated by in a cytoplasm of a cell, and then the enzyme, the C3p3 enzyme, self-amplifies its own expression in a cytoplasm of a cell. Of course, it's a technology which has been developed from scratch, invented from scratch. It's currently in the 4th generation, and the entire intellectual property is owned by Eucharist. Second technology, which has been developed by Eucharist, is how to deliver and to use this artificial expression system. So we do synthesize DNA, which has a very specific design. And this DNA contains the enzyme I was talking about, the C3p3 enzyme, and contains on top of that another piece of DNA which will contain the gene you want to express, gene 1, gene 2, whatever you want. So how it's working? The cell initiates the expression of a C3p3 enzyme. There's a self-amplification of the enzyme in a cytoplasm, and once the enzyme is present in a cytoplasm, it controls as a sort of conductor, conductor for music, the expression of the genes with an S, if you want to express in the cell. Sorry, this DNA, just for information, has very specific design, and particularly is protected against possible integration in the whole cell genome to make it as sure as possible. Based on that, we developed a pipeline. And I said initially, we do focus on liver disorder. The most advanced drug of Eucharist is named Eucharist. It is more specifically designed to prevent hepatic failure of patients having an hepatectomy. But we do extend that with 2 other products currently under R&D phases. Eucharist for acute liver failure, to prevent the acute liver failure to go to fulminant, to death or transplantation, I would say, and also extended now to hepatocarcinoma. In the next year, we plan to extend that to central nervous system. We plan to initiate that by the end of next year, and to extend also the pipeline in oncology, starting in about a couple of years. And as I said before, we also adapted this technology to vaccination. And I will talk more about it in a few seconds. And of course, we adapted today to SARS-CoV-2, the virus, the beta coronavirus, which is involved in the COVID-19 pandemics. Just to summarize what we are doing, so the gene therapy, the synthetic gene therapy, which is the approach to compensate gene deficiencies to treat disorders, is really a novel approach. It's the efficacy really depends on the C3p3 system, which is able to make a lot of mRNA and therefore a lot of protein. So it's the first results very, very good, and now we are entering in, I would say, the CMC phases for the most advanced product. It's made to be safe. not being able to integrate in the OSSL genome and therefore to have any safety issue. It's an approach which is based on dosability, meaning that you can give a dose you want during the period of time you want and to stop the treatment. So it's very much adapted to acute disorder, which are the disorder on which we do start the development. We have no payload limitations, meaning that you can use one or several genes at any length, which can be expressed in the cell. It's a very cost-effectiveness technology that you can adapt, which is made to be GMP compliant. And as I said, focusing today on acute liver disorder, extended about 1 year in CNS and then after to oncology. And the same technology with some, I would say, some more development is used also for vaccination. Not to make the long story, not to detail too much what I mean, but the key advantages of this technology, of course, is going to fight. And so our objective to fight with Moderna and BioNTech technology is to have something at least as effective. We do hope more, but who knows, with much simpler production, because synthesizing mRNA is very complex and very, I would say, expensive. And what we develop is also thermostable without the issues related to storing the storage of a vaccine, such as the one of BioNTech particularly. So that's what we're developing. For this program, we are entering in the animal phases in about 3 months for the, let's say, the development of this vaccine. Of course, it's a platform vaccine, which then can be extended to, I would say, any kind of vaccination you would like to develop. That's it. That's what I wanted to tell you regarding Eucharist. Thank you very much, and I would be pleased to answer questions you may have.
Thank you, Philippe. Thank you, Philippe, for this really precise and technical presentation. Always interesting to have a detail about a technology for the audience, because technology is where come from a company, an idea, and becomes then a startup and a company and grows. The same question then for Abomix. As you know, GEN.ERA is focusing on international markets. The idea, when we discussed a bit about this already within the framework of the project, but you know, we have selected five countries. I will not list them again, but what do you think would be the most promising international market for you, Philippe?
Good question. I would say by sure the USA, because USA is very, I would say, innovation-oriented country. And of course, it's a very large market, I would say. That's the first thing. Regarding the over area, Japan, I don't think, just because the way of thinking in Japan, it's more when you are much more advanced, less innovation. China is always an issue regarding, still an issue, because it's very large, very difficult to get into. So I don't know regarding China. So Japan, probably not. China, no sure. Australia, maybe. Australia, maybe regarding the countries of interest for Eucharist.
It is true.
But it's much smaller than, I would say, the US, of course.
Yeah, of course, of course. We all know the US and the importance in the field of biotechnologies. Sure. One of the aims of GEN.ERA project, as you know, Philippe, was also to discover unexplored market. And Australia was in the final list of the 5 countries because we don't know much about this market. Obviously, we'll learn a bit more after the break in the next presentation. But it is true that opportunities can also come from specific technologies. If you think about Asia and America, a lot of possibilities can raise. I have another remark, another question. You know, GEN.ERA is not only about internationalization outside of Europe. It's also to connect and to have and to create a genomic alliance at the European stage. The idea is to be able to open, even if we are in a single market, it can be also difficult for companies to develop in neighborhood countries. So I don't know if you had some contacts outside of France, because you are located in France, obviously, in Europe.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We are working with several companies, particularly working with companies developing some specific formulation we use for technical approaches, therapeutic approaches, sorry. So whatever you may imagine, cationic lipids and so on. First thing. Second thing, the preclinical studies are made in Europe, in other European countries. And third, a lot of, in fact, US and Canadian university are using our technology for rescue viruses, so production of recombinant viruses for, I would say, research. Not in France, not in Europe, only in the US, and also a little bit in Asia, in particular in Singapore. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed one point answering your previous question, but yeah, Singapore is also a good country, so it's also an interesting country. So I would say, if we should focus on two countries for Eucharist, it should be certainly USA and Singapore.
Okay, that's clear. That's clear. So the gate for Asia markets, Singapore, and the gate for the American market, the US. One final question, and then I let you go. I know you are busy right after this meeting. What do you expect from GEN.ERA project? What could you get from GEN.ERA projects and for Eucharist, of course?
Several things. First thing, the opportunity to, let's say, find research collaboration. So we are particularly interested in finding either academic labs, either pharmaceutical companies interested to co-develop therapeutics with us. First area. So second area, we are always interested in companies having specific technologies to deliver our non-viral approach. So ever if it's a physical, ever it's a chemical approach based on reagents, whatever you want, it's a second field of interest for us. So really that's a two critical and two main area of interest for us. Scientific collaboration and development collaboration. Scientific collaboration to make our product better, more effective, and development collaboration to develop therapeutic programs with our technology.
Okay, Philippe, that's pretty clear. I thank you very much for your intervention. It was really interesting as always with you. I will let you go. I hope you can make it for the matchmaking this afternoon. And meanwhile, there will be, as you know, this presentation on Singapore and on the US as it is your main targeted international countries. Thank you very much, Philippe.
Thank you very much.
On the next part, we'll have a presentation from our GEN.ERA associated partnership. The GEN.ERA associated partnership are really important to support us in the development of GEN.ERA, because GEN.ERA is not only a project with 5 partners. It's a project where we aim to spread. We are to aim to spread, to create this idea of a European alliance. And to that, it is really important for us to gather all the forces in Europe and to discuss about what we could do and how we could do it together. So in this next part of the presentation, of this event, I'm sorry, I will host Daniela Onofri from Medicine Paris region, a long-time supportive organization of Genopole, and next we will have Arla del Agnolio. Do I say it correctly? Yeah, okay, thank you. I was a bit stressed. No, so we'll have Daniela Onofri online with us, and then we'll have Arla who will talk about Trentino Sviluppo on site here. So I will ask you, Arla, to come right next to me. And Daniela, are you with us?
Yeah.
Thank you, Daniela. Thank you for coming. How are you?
Fine, thanks.
You're
fine. It's weird to see my face in the screen. Okay.
Okay, so Daniela, let's talk a bit about medicine. Let's talk a bit about what GEN.ERA can bring you and how you can support our actions, because as you know, you are a long-standing partner of Genopole, of course. So the floor is yours, and I'll let you introduce us to medicine. Thank you, Daniela.
Yeah, I will share my screen, or
yes, you can share your screen now. I think you have this.
Okay, I don't know if you see it.
Yes, perfect.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. So, my name is Daniela Onofri, so I'm the European Affairs Manager for Medicine, associated partner of GEN.ERA project. And first of all, thanks for the invitation. I'm glad to be here with all of you to say a little bit more about what medicine is and what we do, and in which way, of course, we are interested in GEN.ERA project for our ecosystem and for the cluster itself. So I don't know if you already hear about medicine. We are the life science cluster located in Paris, and we put together the public and private excellence in the health innovation. So as no-profit association, we are the trust party connecting all kinds of stakeholders. So in our ecosystem, you are in the middle of clinicians, researchers, and of course, we have the largest European hospital network, EPHP, but we work with university, large science, large company, and of course, the most parties are SMEs. Our mission is to translate scientific innovation into therapeutic, technological, economical value for the entire ecosystem. And one of our mission is also to contribute at the job creation for Paris region. So this is already just a little explication about we are interested in GEN.ERA, because they match with our mission in terms of the support of the French company and European companies. This is just a short overview about our ecosystem. So we are composed by more than 500 members. Here you have just some idea about large company we work with, clinic and clinical academics partner. And you can see that on to 500 members, the most part 420 and more are SMEs. Medicine is 22 full experts, but we are also lucky because we work with more than 60 volunteer experts that are part of an evaluation committee and they come from different sectors. We have experts from the academic side or public or large company, pharma, and so on. And the mission is to support innovative projects in their development and how to can face the challenge that the project has. And we work around 3 main areas: that health innovation, SMEs development, and Europe international. So GEN.ERA is, I think, can cover the 3 of them. The mission is to create business, so have also facilitated the networking for our companies. foster emergence of innovation projects, so with public, regional, national, and private funding, so with all the investors. And my job is more in those SMEs in France and especially in Europe. I will be very quickly, but here you can see that our ecosystem cover all the value chain with biotech, medtech, and digital health, basically, but we work also in two transversal sector, that is diagnostic and therapeutic, and we launched this year an initiative that is Medicine Initiative for Health Data, where we work with GaiaX, and we're trying to have a part in the European Health Data Hub. And this is some of action that we do, but yeah, you can receive the slide, so you have some example here. But most part is the monthly commission where all the actors, private and public, can meet each month and discuss about collaborative project and challenge in some specific sector, or to launch some expression of interest in order to put together actors that are relevant to a specific topic and support them in the construction of the consortium or how the project can progress. Here, just some evaluation regarding the job done until now. So on to more than now, I think 2,000 projects evaluated, 1915 products are reached market, and for a total investment of 2 billion euro. And this is my part. So I'm in charge of the European project, and I support company in the development of their project and how they can have access to European programs. So you can see Horizon Europe before Age 2020, the European Innovation Council, and so on. And the support is more on identify the best program, European program, and if it's a collaborative project, the idea is to support them also in the partner search. And myself, I'm engaging in the reading of the proposal before the submission, and some letter of support that are always important for a company in front of the European Commission. Member of the ITL, so we work with several since 2017. So we're working with all the partner in different areas of Europe, so Germany, Netherlands, Spain, and also the InnoStars region like Italy or Greece. Here's just some project, but the idea is to give an idea about the pillar that we work on. So education, because of course the mission, as I mentioned at the beginning, was to contribute at the job creation for Paris region and some project that we have. Acceleration, because of course it's the main objective for our startups and companies. So the main program for now is Project Global, where we work in the international market like Canada, US, and Korea. And this is another reason why the idea is to work with GEN.ERA, because we cover more or less the same international market. And I think that joining forces, we can be more helpful for the company of France. And we are not alone. So in France, you have 6 other life science clusters located, as you can see on the map. And this is another example of why we are interested in joining forces, because the mission is the same and it can be useful to be together and not to be everyone on one side. And just for giving you an example of how we work, for example, at European level, we are involved in several European projects, like you can see on the left side. So project very different, but the main objective is support companies in the diagnostic or regenerative medicine or blockchain. But in the right side, you can see also other projects where we are associated partner, because even if we are not partner with the project ourselves, but we want to contribute an interesting project, because the company are our support. The support of companies our mission. So if other project can support the French company, for us it's perfect, and GEN.ERA can match all the market that we are already in different sector, because we don't have project in the sector, but this is why we work together. The overview about our international network, but I'm not expert on this slide because I'm more on European side, but here, and it's the last slide, you can have all the contact and the person in charge of the international market, that now she's in United States in 2 months, supporting some company that want to be located in United States. That's it. I hope I keep I have just 7 minutes and no more, sorry.
Daniela, I think it was really interesting, inspiring also. Impressive numbers, I have to admit, impressive numbers in terms of supporting the companies, raising funds. We know that when we work together, because you are involved in several European projects, I'm pretty sure you have done already a COSME project, right? Am I correct?
Yeah. It was, photonics,
How was the outcomes of this project? What did you think of the opportunities that it offered to the companies?
We support several companies, and we are now discussing with the new program, Horizon Europe, we are discussing about what next, how we can be more, just sustainable in terms of support for this kind of sector.
So if you think about sustainability, it's because it was a success, I think. So that's great. That's great. Always great. And
for us, of course, and I hope for company, but we received some feedback out later, and everyone was happy, and it was a good project. Finished, but this is why we are trying to think about the next step.
I want to emphasize also something else. In your presentation, you showed the network of international network that medicine has. Let's get back to this slide.
It's this one or
next one, next. No, I think no. I mean next one in the other in the reverse.
This one.
Yes, the previous one.
Okay.
No, no, the next one. I'm sorry. Okay. We managed to do it finally. So as you can see, you already have 3 of the 5 countries that were targeted with a lot of connection with them. That's the message we wanted to show in this event, is that an alliance, by mutualizing the network, is how you can offer the most possibilities, opportunities, and spending less resources on it. So I think it's really interesting to keep mutualizing all this network, because we do it beforehand for French companies, of course, but also for European companies, as it is the aim of those COSME projects. So thank you, Daniela, and I hope you can stay longer to assist to the presentation of the emerging market. As we can see, you already know pretty much about the US, the Japan, Singapore, but we have also Australia and Australia. Exactly. So on the next one, and thank you, Daniela, for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much.
On the next presentation, it's on site. Arla Dell'Agnolo will come to talk about Trentino Sviluppo. So Arla, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for coming here.
Okay. Thanks very much.
The mic.
No, it's working.
It's working?
Okay. Thanks very much. I'm Arla Dell'Agnolo. I'm from Trentino Sviluppo. I'm working in the international area of Trentino Sviluppo. I'm here today to tell what we are doing, but I'm asking to my colleague, Davide Ederle, to join me here, because he is the technology transfer manager of it. So I think he's the right man in the right place here. Just few numbers about, but it's not working right here. Okay. Where we are in the very north of Italy. We are a small country, and we are an autonomous province. That means that we have our own government, and that we can decide on our strategies. We are more or less free to do. Sorry.
Technical difficulties.
Because it was there.
Your presentation were not online.
But now it is.
Now it should be. Now it should be.
Few seconds. Here we are.
Oh,
okay,
yeah, it's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, so you see where we are from the geographical point of view. We are in the northern part of Italy. But what is important to see is that we are small, but we have 6 business innovation centers. We have a lot of people that are working in the research and development fields. And we have a good number of innovative startups and 40 research centers. So we are very active from this point of view. These are some of our research centers, but I'll let Davide later explain you better what they do. So my focus is on Trentino Sviluppo. So we is the company established by the province to support business innovation and territorial marketing. What we do is business location, FDA, incubation, strategic cluster, export and internationalization, cable car asset management, prompt facility, super film production. So we have many, many, many activities. And we are more or less 100 persons that works on these different items. What we developed during this year is from my point of view, I'm working for the international office, so that's always my focus. We developed this international biotech assessment, and that's why we joined your GEN.ERA project, because we found many connections and many things on which we can work together in the future. Because we found out that in our country there were a lot of small companies and spin-off and startups based that works on biotech items. So we decided to map them and to with the aim of enforce their international network and even to build a Trentino biotech cluster. So we need to know them, to collect them, to put them together to be stronger. And that's what we did. And the action that we did during this year is to profile them, to do benchmark, for example, with you, but even with the Italian cluster like Campania Bioscience. And so we meet you and know you. We developed this export readiness assessment that was focused on their needs and on their topics so that we were able to understand on which steps of their development we can put them. It was important to do it because from that point we can start to work on them, and that's what we did. We taste this assessment on a group of companies, and then we give them back the project saying, you can, on our opinion, you can do this because you are right in this moment of your development to go on that market instead of another market. But we're only suggestions, we not pretend to do their job. Okay. And we discuss with the businesses and startup, we do it with them. What we achieved in few words. We created this database, we establish international benchmarks, we engage spin-off startups, this audit and a tailor-made assessment, but we enforce the idea of cluster, of biotech cluster. We do networking and we do a lot of scouting and signposting for these companies. So now I let our aim is to collaborate with you and with all other actors that are in this group so that is the good, the natural development of our international assessment. And now Davide will speak about HIT.
Thank you, Arla, for your introduction. Just a few words, 30 seconds. I will just introduce you HIT. HIT is the Hub Innovation for Trentino. It's a foundation that deals with four main movements, from research to business. We help technology transfer activities from the academia to the market. Then we just support also the opposite movement, from the needs from the companies to solution provided by research. Then we support also startups with Trentino Sviluppo. We have a startup Trentino Startup Valley, that is a competition, startup competition, in which we nurture business teams and we help them grow. And also we support Trentino Innovation Ecosystem in creating opportunities at international level, like in this case, in reaching collaboration that helps all the ecosystem to grow together in a positive way and reaching new opportunities and collaboration at international level. I ask many of you to exchange a couple of words during this matchmaking event this afternoon, so I hope to share views and opportunities with all of you this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Davide. Thank you, Arla, for this really inspiring also presentation of what you do, your work. Can you stay just here a second? Maybe we can have some questions. What does genomic, can you stay on the camera? What does genomic, this specific field, because as you know, it's a niche thematic. What do you, the micro. I'm sorry, again.
Thanks very much.
I'm really quiet, so I forget the mic.
Yes.
No, just what this thematic in particular means for your region, for Italy? Do you think this is something that is currently developing in Italy, or?
For my region, I'm speaking for my region. When we started to work on the international biotech assessment, what we found out is that our region, as well as many research centers, was not focused only on one item. What we have to do is to try to focus or to help them in the complexion of what they are doing. So maybe genomic item is not the first item on which they are working, but we have few small companies, and maybe we can help them in develop this and focus on this item. Okay, this for my region. I don't know if Davide has something to say about Italy, because he's got a more bigger point of view.
Partner of Alisei, that is the national cluster for life sciences, and we are just focusing on specific verticals, especially on genomics. We think that the difference is made, well, many centers, many research groups are working on genomics. Our approach as a Trentino, we are a small region, but we are focused on technology transfer initiative in that field. So we do not just aim only to make research, that is very important, but we want to make biotechnologies, so produce services and products that help in changing people's life. So that's the focus on our research groups and research centers as a whole, and I think that is the right approach if you want to deal with genomics with a perspective of changing people's lives.
Yeah, I don't need the mic, but is it okay?
You have
Yes, it is.
But thank you for your intervention. It was really interesting. Before the break, because we'll have a break in a couple of minutes, there is a question in the chat. It's a question about the market of India. The question was, why did we not focus GEN.ERA on India? As I maybe not explained it in details, but before we focused on 8 countries, 8 markets. India were into this market, and we had to make this selection. So from 8, we went to 5. This selection has been made with the help of our companies, of course. We interviewed them. We saw the opportunities, maybe the existing contacts. And India was not relevant at this time, but on the next future, it is true that India is a huge market. Also, the technology is rising there. So it will be also, it could be a project by itself, I would say, about India. So that was to answer to the person that sent this remark on the chat, and was really interesting also. So we'll have the break now for 10 minutes. Then we get back for the emerging markets presentation with our partner from Innovatio Curis. So there will be, as I told you, an overview on the 5 markets for 1 hour. So you will have 15 minutes per market to talk about the latest trends and opportunities with those markets. And then later on, I would say even more interesting, because we'll have in-depth analysis from people living in those countries, knowing the market, experts that have experienced biotech venture in those markets at 11:45. So stay with us. We'll have a short break for now, and then we get back as soon as we take a little coffee and a little water. Thank you very much. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for staying here, for those that are online. Now we'll get into the middle, the center of our event, which will be the emerging market presentation. This emerging market presentation is conducted by our partners, Innovation Eucharist. So, as I told you before the break, we'll have a first part with Pathvi Jain, which is an expert on, who is an expert, I'm sorry, on the biotechnology side for internationalization. And then we'll have a global genomic market panel discussion monitored by Sachin Gaur. So, without any further delay, Pathvi, are you with us?
Yes, here I am. Thank you.
Hello, Pathvi. How are you?
Very well. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, we are good. We are good. We are really
Great.
expecting your presentation. That promised to be really exciting, and especially on these 5 emerging markets that are crucial for our field: the US, the Japan, Singapore, Australia, and can you share your presentation on the screen?
Yeah, without further ado, we start with the presentation.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
You have 1 hour, so it's rather short. Just before Pathvi start, it's just an overview. Then in a later stage, GEN.ERA will go for a more in-depth presentation on 3, not presentation, I'm sorry, intelligence analysis on 3 selected markets with your help. Thank you, Pathvi. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here. My name is Pathvi Jain, and I am the Head of Market Access and Partnerships at Innovation Eucharist in India. And today I'm going to talk about the most promising international markets for genomic value chain SMEs in Europe. So to begin with, let me ask you, what if we were all the same looking, like this picture on your screens? How different would our everyday lives be? What would happen if we were not at all different from a person sitting next to us and a person next to that? I'm sure the world would have been a chaotic place. This is funny how I can't even remember all the names of similar looking goldfishes in one of my friend's aquarium. And I surely don't want to imagine a world where we all look exactly the same. Having said that, our genetic composition is to be thanked for the beautiful individuals we are today. So let's rewind a bit and see what are some of the milestones in unraveling the human genome. The realization that traits and certain diseases can be passed from parents to offspring stretches back at least to the ancient Greeks, well before any genome was actually decoded. The Greek physician Hippocrates theorized that seeds from different body parts were transmitted to newly conceived embryo, and theory known as pangenesis. Charles Darwin later espoused similar ideas. So what exactly these seeds might be was destined to remain a mystery for centuries. But the first person to put heredity to the test was Gregor Mendel, who systematically tracked dominant and recessive traits in his famous pea plants. Mendel published his work on statistics of genetic dominance in 1866 to a little notice. And from here, we understood heredity. But the painstaking work of crossbreeding pea plants didn't languish for long. In 1869, Swiss physician Johannes Frederick became the first scientist to isolate nucleic acids, the active ingredient of DNA. Over the next several decades, scientists peering deeper into the cell discovered mitosis and meiosis, chromosomes, and proteins in the cell nuclei. In 1903, early geneticist Walter Sutton put together 2 and 2, discovering through his work on grasshopper chromosomes that these mysterious filaments occur in pair and separate during meiosis, providing a vehicle for our mom and dad to pass on their genetic material. On the parallel, German biologist Theodor Boveri came to similar conclusion about the chromosome. At the same time, Sutton was working on his chromosome discovery. And this is how chromosomes came into light. With this link between chromosome and heredity confirmed, now the geneticists delved deeper into the mysteries of the genome. In 1941, geneticists Edward Tatum and George Beadle published their work revealing that genes code for proteins, explaining for the first time how genes direct metabolism in cells. Tatum and Beadle would share half of 1958 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine for their discovery, which they made by mutating bread mold with X-rays. Now, scientists knew that DNA was the molecule responsible for carrying genetic information. But how and what did this molecule look like was the question. So the piece of puzzle were beginning to come together throughout the 1940s. In 1950, biochemist Erwin Chargaff figured out that the nucleotides or the building blocks of DNA occur in specific patterns. These nucleotides are represented by 4 letters A, T, G, and C. And Chargaff was the first to discover that no matter the species, A and T always appeared in equal measures, as did G and C. This discovery was crucial to James Watson and Francis Crick, the scientists who described the structure of DNA for the first time in 1958. So combining Chargaff's work with studies by Maurice Wilkins and Rosalind Franklin and other scientists, the pair worked out the iconic double helix shape of DNA, a discovery that we all know as the secret of life. With DNA becoming an increasingly open book, scientists began to tackle genomics, the study of complete genetic library of organisms. In 1977, researchers sequenced a complete genome for the first time, starting with a little bacteriophage known as Phi X174. By 1990, science was ready to start something much bigger, a complete cataloging of the human genome. The result was the Human Genome Project, as we call it, HGP, a 13-year international effort that resulted in complete sequencing of human genome in 2001. Although more detailed analysis of initial sequence continued after the release of this first draft. The project revealed that humans have about 23,000 protein coding genes, which amounts for mere 1.5% of the whole genome. The rest is made up of what is called as junk DNA. Now, the ENCODE project has looked deeper into this junk DNA than ever before. And junk it is not, according to more than 30 research papers published in a number of journals, including Science and Nature. At least 80% of the genome is biologically active, with much non-protein coding DNA regulating nearby genes in a complex dance of influence. The findings reveal that the genetic basis of these diseases may not be in protein coding genes at all, but in their regulatory neighbors. For example, genetic variants related to metabolic diseases pop up in genetic regions that are activated only in liver cells. Likewise, regions activated in immune cells hold variants that have been associated with autoimmune disorders such as lupus. These breakthrough studies provide the first extensive maps of DNA switches that control human genes. Researchers John, Associate Professor of Genome Science and Medicine at the University of Washington, said in a statement, "This information is vital to understand how the body makes different kinds of cells and how normal gene circuitry gets rewired in disease. We are now able to read the living human genome at an unprecedented level of details and to begin to make sense of the complex instruction set that ultimately influences a wide range of human body." Next was the establishment of the 100,000 Project to sequence 100,000 genomes from around 85,000 NHS patients affected by a rare disease or cancer. The project also created a new genomic medicine service for the NHS that is transforming the way people are cared for and brings advanced diagnosis and personalized treatment to all those who need them. And in July 2019, Genomics in England announced data release, which included the 100,000 whole genome made available to researchers. The 100,000 Genome Project provided a pre-COVID reference set in the Genomics study on COVID-19 in the previous year, which is 2020. Genomics England worked in partnership with the Genomics Consortium, led by the University of Edinburgh, to analyze the whole genome sequence of approximately 20,000 people who have been severely affected by COVID-19 or the coronavirus. And the 100,000 Genome Project hence was referred to as the incredibly important pre-COVID reference set. If the Human Genome Project was an actual human, a revolutionary wizard kid, a prodigy in the vein of Mozart, one who changed the biomedical universe forever as a teenager, but ultimately has much more to offer in the way of transforming mankind. It's been 20 years since scientists published the first draft of the human genome. Since its launch in 90s, the HGP fundamentally altered how we understand our genetic blueprint, our evolution, and the diagnosis and treatment of diseases. Its spawned famous offspring include gene therapy, mRNA vaccines, and the recently talked about CRISPR technology. It's the parents to HGP Write, a global consortium that seeks to rewrite life. The HGP was able to sequence the 90% of the human DNA that geneticists called euchromatin, which is loosely folded and contains nearly all the genes that are actively making proteins. And it led Karen Miga, a geneticist now at the University of California, Santa Cruz, and the associate director of the UCSC Genomics Institute, who specializes in heterochromatin, the tightly packed section of DNA, with highly repetitive sequences near the ends and centers of chromosomes, to deep dive into unwinding the remaining 10% of the human DNA. And as the advancing DNA sequencing technologies enabled researchers to read longer and longer stretches of the genome in one go, Migra could see that scientists were inching closer to the possibility of cracking the problem open. Together with her colleague Adam Philly, and a computational biologist at the National Human Genome Research Institute at USA, Miga launched the telomere to telomere or T2T consortium in 2018 to finally sequence every last nucleotide of human DNA. Then, just as the team was finding its footing, the pandemic struck. But the COVID-19 did not stop their progress. In June, Miga and Philippi, along with their colleagues, published the first complete genome sequence on the preprint server bioarchive.org. 3 decades after it began, the human genome was finally complete. As we know, that one that can be read can be altered. And this is what the CRISPR technology is about. The CRISPR, short for rather inelegantly named clustered regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats technology for gene editing, has been triggering tremendous excitement ever since it was developed in the year 2012, both for the promise that it holds in improving the quality of life and the dangers of its misuses. Recently, Emmanuel Charpentier and Jennifer Doudna have received the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for discovering one of the gene technology's sharpest tools, the CRISPR or Cas9 genetic scissors. Using these, researchers can change the DNA of animals, plants, and microorganisms with extremely high precision. This technology has had a revolutionary impact on the life sciences and is contributing to new cancer therapies and may make the dream of curing inherited diseases come true. If we talk about AI into life sciences, which is opening the next frontier for synthetic biology, where on the one hand, Francis Arnold used the principle of evolution for studying genetic changes and selection to develop protein that solved humankind's chemical problems and won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 2018. On the other hand, researchers are taking help of technology to study, understand, build, and expand the pool of tools that can help them develop faster ways to predict diseases and improve healthcare delivery. Synthetic biology is driving significant advances in biomedicine, which will lead to transformational improvements in healthcare. Already, patients are benefiting from so-called CAR for chimeric antigen receptor technology, which engineers the immune cells or the T cells of the patient to recognize and attack cancer cells. Genetically engineered viruses are being used to correct defective genes in the patients with inherited diseases such as severe combined immune deficiency, which is SCID, or epidermolysis bullosa. Recently, Google AI offshoot called as DeepMind has made a gargantuan leap in solving one of the biology's grandest challenge called as CAST, short for Critical Assessment of Structure Prediction. DeepMind has developed an artificial intelligence or AI program named AlphaFold that determines a protein's 3D shape from its amino acid sequence. Parallelly, Baker Lab postdoctoral scholar Minyoung Baek developed Rosetta Fold, which is a 3-track neural network software tool that uses deep learning to quickly and accurately predict protein structure based on limited information. All these advancements will be a huge boon to life sciences and medicine. It would vastly accelerate efforts to understand the building blocks of cells and enable quicker and more advanced drug discovery and understanding of the diseases. With the advent of these technological advancements, it won't be wrong to say that genomics is evolving from niche to center stage. Harnessing the capabilities of genomics will change the fabric of everyday life and will disrupt business models of payers, providers, and pharma alike, while creating new markets for next generation prevention. The mass affordability of sequencing enables a paradigm shift from sequencing only those with the risk factors to actively sequencing to identify risk factors. It will allow every individual to build up genomic data capital, opening the door for new application and business models across health insurance, care delivery, and everyday life. Genomics has already become the standard of care in several niches. The next decade will bring a major transition from treatment to prevention. Pre-implementation, diagnostics, and carrier screenings will be widely used to provide congenital diseases and will unlock a far larger data capital. The number of drugs where pharmacogenomics can improve their safety and efficacy will proliferate, such as aspirin, which increases rather than reduces the cardiovascular risk for some genetic variants. The market for genetics-powered wearables and digital tools will explode, as they can enable consumers to make personalized everyday decisions, such as a wristband that provides a red, yellow, or green indicator for every food purchases, tailored to the genetic signature of each individual. Through further advancements in genomics, applications like these will be expanded, and costly diseases like obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular, or cancer, to name a few, could be avoided. Now, if we take a deeper look, or if we take a peek into the global biotech industry growth as a whole, we can see from these graphs how the funding and investment has increased over the past few years. In fact, the year 2020 stands out as one of the best year ever for biotech and life sciences financing across the globe. And if we talk about the global genomic market size, here we can see the global genomic market size was valued at approximately 20 billion US dollars in 2020 and is projected to hit over 72 billion US dollar by 2030, expanding at a CAGR of 13.65% during the forecast period. The possibility of making significant medical discoveries in the areas targeted by the mission is becoming much more feasible. This is due to improvement in the performance and the cost of key enabling technologies such as genome sequencing, computing power, AI and ML, etc. Along with the increased access to data and data analysis tools, these technological improvements are increasing our research power and opening up opportunities for continuing healthcare improvements. This slide gives you an idea about how genomic influence our world in several ways on a day-to-day basis. It plays a significant part in diagnosis of several genetic disorders. Genomics is extensively employed in healthcare, agriculture, biotechnology, DNA sequencing, and diagnostics. In the healthcare segment, genomics is used for development of vaccines and drugs. It has an ample scope in personalized medicine, as it can advocate a medical management constructed on the genetic face of a person with the help of the clinical data and AI. It is also applied in synthetic biology and bioengineering. Genomic research in agriculture is hired for plant breeding and genetics to cultivate crop production. All these factors mentioned here are affecting the enormous medical and agricultural sector and are all set to stroke the genomics market with the abundant demand. With this background, now let's talk about some of the most promising international markets for genomic value chain SMEs in Europe. Our first focus geography, as you can see, is Singapore. Here are some interesting facts about the Singapore economy. The economy of Singapore is a highly developed free market economy and has been ranked by the World Economic Forum as the most open in the world, the third least corrupt, and the most pro-business economy. Singapore has low tax rates and ranks 37th for per capita GDP in the world in terms of purchasing power parity, which is PPP. If we see the overview, the EU has a free trade agreement with Singapore called as EU-SFTA, which was approved by the European Parliament by February 2019 and entered into force on 21st November 2019. This brings upon a number of benefits like increased market access for European businesses in Singapore and vice versa, and also less burdensome technical rules and many more. For the EU, Singapore is the 16th largest trade in good partner and EU's second largest trading partner in the ASEAN countries in 2020. Singapore provides an excellent representation of Asia. It consists of three major ethnic groups, which is Chinese, Malay, and Indians, which captures approximately 80% of the Asia's diversity and is poised for prominence in genetics and genomics and the move towards the personalized medicine. The EU has a sizable positive balance of trades in goods and in services with Singapore. And Singapore is a major destination for European investments in Asia. Over 10,000 EU companies are established in Singapore and use it as a hub to serve the whole South Pacific, considering its geographical location. Now, as we've seen the trade relationships of Singapore and EU, let's take a look at the genomic market size of the nation. As per the studies, the genomic market size in Asia Pacific was worth $3.28 billion US in 2020 and is expected to grow at a CAGR of 10.5% to reach $5.41 billion US in the next 5 years. And geographically, as I said, Asia Pacific genomic market is one of the fastest growing regional markets in the global market. Under the APAC region, the Singapore genomic market is expected to grow at a CAGR of 20.5% to reach the market worth approximately $43 US. This market growth is attributed to various market drivers like rising prevalence of genetic disorders, increasing prevalence of various types of cancer, which we'll see in the next slide, increasing research funding in the field of genomics, where as a part of its Research, Innovation and Enterprises 2025-year plan, the Singapore government has allocated $4 billion to health and biomedical sciences, and also to the more affordability of genomic sequencing. So as we have seen in our previous slides, the cost for the genomic sequencing has gone down, and today in 2021, a consumer can get their genomic sequenced as little cost, while clinical grade direct to consumer tests are available for as low as $1,500 USD, which is a comparable drop from a cost of $50,000 per sample back in 2010. Moving ahead, if we see the cancer profile of the Singapore, as per WHO, cancer is a leading cause of death worldwide, accounting for an estimate of 9.6 million deaths in 2018. And a total annual economic cost of cancer at the initial period of this decade was estimated at approximately $1.16 trillion. Thus, the application of genomics in exploring cell-free circulating DNA by several R&D sectors as a potential biomarker for cancers is driving the market towards the exponential growth. The genomic market, with its current potential, displays all the necessary traits it can adapt in the coming years to divert a huge chunk of traffic and revenue from the omnipresent cancer diagnostics. And if we see the cancer burden of Singapore here, we will see that about 50% of the cancer cases found in 2018 ended up in deaths. According to the Ministry of Health at Singapore, cancer is the #1 killer in the country, with an average of 41 people getting diagnosed with cancer and 15 people dying from cancer every day. In particular, as we see, prostate, lung, colorectal, and breast cancers are the leading causes of cancer-related deaths in Singapore. As a result of which, the scientific community across the country is setting new examples by focusing majorly on two aspects. One is chemotherapy and second is immunotherapy to fight this deadly disease. Hence presents a huge market opportunities for the SMEs. There are a few more points that make Singapore a good market to explore. Singapore is built on its ability to harness globalization and is renowned for integrity, quality, reliability, productivity, and enforcement of intellectual property rights. The World Bank and International Finance Corporation, the IFC, ranks Singapore #2 in the world for ease of doing business, thanks to its many assets which are essential in the knowledge economy. Competitive tax rates and a strategic location makes it a preferred destination for business looking to expand in Asia Pacific region. And it has long been considered an economically advanced stronghold within a region on the tip of an economic boom. However, doing business in Singapore is not without some challenges, and demand from global businesses is providing tough competition. Reduced margins and as well as increasing business cost, mostly when we talk about rentals or renting a place in Singapore, and also a squeezed labor market. Even the lack of trained technicians adds to the challenges of this market. Now that we have seen the market landscape, let us also see the regulatory pathway one has to follow while entering Singapore. Singapore has a well-defined regulatory pathway, and the information is easily available for the applicant, hence works well in favor of SMEs willing to enter the Singapore market. In Singapore, HSA, which is Health Science Authority, it is the national authority regulating health products, managing the national blood banks, transfusion medicine, and forensic medicine expertise. As you see, class 1 cell, tissue, or gene therapy products, which includes the human cells or tissues that has been subjected to minimal manipulation, intended for a homologous use and is not combined with a therapeutic product or a medical device, of which examples could be bone grafts, amniotic membrane, skin, etc. These products are exempted from product registration. Instead, the supplier would be required to notify HSA of the product and must receive HSA's written acceptance or acknowledgement of notification before it can be supplied. For the class 2 products will require registration with HSA before they can be supplied in Singapore. And if you're wondering what are the class 2 products, so these could include human cells or tissues that have been subject to more than minimal manipulation, or is intended for a non-homologous use, or is combined with a therapeutic product or a medical device. Class 2 products also include xenogenic cells or tissues or products with recombinant nucleic acid. Examples of class 2 products could be gene-modified cells, cell grown on scaffold, culture expanded cells, vectors with therapeutic genes, and xeno-based products. In making an application, applicants should ensure that the submission requirements are as specified in the guidance document are duly fulfilled. In a situation where an applicant possesses or proposes an alternative to any of the specified requirements, such a proposal should be accompanied by scientific justification and discussed with HSA prior to making the submission to avoid potential rejection of the application. Next, we will talk about one of the developed economies of the world, the USA. The United States has the most technologically powerful and innovative economy in the world. Its firms are at or near the forefront in technological advancements, especially in artificial intelligence, computers, pharmaceuticals, medical, aerospace, and military equipments. The economy of United States is a highly developed free market economy. It is the world's largest economy by nominal GDP and net wealth, and now even the largest by purchasing power parity as per the World Bank data of 2020. The largest US trading partners are China, European Union, Canada, Mexico, India, Japan, South Korea, the United Kingdom, and Taiwan. The US is the world's largest importer and the second largest exporter. As per the Transparency International's 2020 Corruption Perception Index, the USA ranks 25th least corrupt out of 180 countries. If we see the overview, the European Union have the largest bilateral trade and investment relationship and enjoy the most integrated economic relationship in the world. Although overtaken by China in 2021 as the largest EU import source for the goods, the US still remains the EU's largest trade and investment partner by far. The transatlantic relationship defines the world economy. Either the EU or the US is the largest trade and investment partner of almost every country in the global economy. Taken together, the economies of both territories amounts to more than 40% of world GDP and more than 40% of global trade in goods and services. Despite the US being EU's largest trading partner, there is no dedicated free trade agreement between the EU and US. The transatlantic trade and investment partnership negotiations were launched in 2013, but they ended without any conclusion at the end of 2016 within 3 years. They were formally closed in 2019, considering them as obsolete. And nevertheless, the transatlantic trade continues to enjoy one of the lowest average tariffs, under 3% in the world, governed by World Trade Organization rules. Here, when we talk about the genomics market size of the USA, the genomic market size in North America is predicted to be 6.03 billion US dollars in 2021 and is estimated to grow at a CAGR of 9.7% to reach 8.74 billion US dollars by 2025. Whereas on the other hand, the South and Central market is expected to grow at a CAGR of 9.1% to reach 2.4 billion US dollars in 2025 from 1.6 billion US dollars in the last year, which is 2020. You know, when we talk about the growth drivers, one of the major growth drivers of the North America market is the availability of abundant funds and many companies reaching molecular biology. The National Human Genome Research Institute, NHGRI as we call it, was approved for 650,006 million US dollars from somewhere around 606,003 million US dollar, which accounts for somewhere around 7.3% increase in the funding. The demand for genomic medicine has also increased and is increasing in North America on account of rising adoption of personalized medicine and new sequencing technologies. In 2020, owing to a rise in competition for the development of genomic testing solutions for COVID-19, the US market has witnessed multiple product launches. And also the rising efforts to train and support personnel contributes to the growth of the market. Here you can also see the USA has been ranked as number 1 as the most startup-friendly country in the world, wherein other economies of interest like Singapore, Australia, China rank 13, 14 or 15 among the list respectively. With genomics being used in various industries, the market growth is expected to boost in the next 5 years. So when we take a closer look at the cancer burden of the country, cancer is the second leading cause of death in United States. Can you guess which is the number 1? So it's heart diseases, yes, making it one of the modern medicine's greatest challenge. The percentage of US population who has or ever had cancer has increased over the past 15 years. Furthermore, men have higher chances for developing cancer than women. As per the available data for 2018, around 2 million new cases of cancer were reported and some 16,500 deaths were attributed to cancer in the United States. In particular, as per the data of WHO, prostate, lung, and breast cancer are among the leading causes of cancer-related deaths in the US. But when it comes to the market challenges, the most complex aspect of doing business in the US is complying with 50 different regulations pertaining to licenses, tax registration, and employment rule. Apart from that, strong multicultural influence, complexity in the taxing system, high competition from the multinational corporations, complicated electricity and construction rules are some of the challenges that one should expect when planning to enter the USA genomics market. If we talk about the regulatory pathway, currently in USA, genetic or non-genetic tests receive the same level of oversight from governmental agencies. Genetic tests are regulated at the federal level by FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, which is CMS, and the Federal Trade Commission, which is FTC. In addition to the federal role, oversight of genetic tests is provided by states and private sector organizations. CMS implements regulations to control the analytical validity of clinical genetic tests, but there is no federal oversight of the clinical validity of most genetic tests. In light of this, FDA actually proposed new policies to enhance analytical validity regulation and expand oversight of the clinical validity of genetic tests. But neither agencies had issued formal plans to regulate the clinical utility of genetic tests, but typically healthcare insurers like CMS draw on data from the research and medical communities to determine the clinical utility of medical treatments and procedures. Since clinical genomics is a relatively new field, framework to evaluate the clinical utility of genetic tests are still being developed. Next, coming to our third geography, which is Japan. The economy of Japan is a highly developed free market economy, I would say, and it is the third largest in the world by nominal GDP and the fourth largest by purchasing power parity. With a population of about 125 million people, Japan spends somewhere around 11% of its GDP on healthcare, as per the data of 2018. Though it is the world's second largest developed economy, it ranks 29th on the ease of doing business list according to the World Bank. As we all know, honesty and humility are the highlight traits of the people of Japan, and hence it ranks as high as 19th on the list of least corrupt nations on the Transparency International's 2020 Corruption Perception Index. If we take a look on the overview of the trade relations between EU and Japan, EU and Japan have concluded an economic partnership agreement, which entered into force on 1st February 2019, together with a more general strategic partnership agreement provisionally applied since the same date. It has become the cornerstone of an enhanced relationship between the EU and Japan. EU firms already export nearly 70 billion euros in goods and 28 billion euros in services to Japan every year. In the past, European firms faced trade barriers when exporting to Japan, which sometimes made it hard for them to compete. And the EU and Japan Economic Partnership Agreement, have reduced the trade barriers that were faced in past by the European firms when exporting to Japan, and has helped them to better compete in this market. Moving on to the market size, as per the studies, and as we can see here, the Japan's digital genomic market is expected to grow at a CAGR of approximately 10.43% in next 5 years, whereas Japan's direct-to-consumer genetic testing market is expected to grow at a growth rate of 18.2% in the next 3 to 5 years. As Japan's population is aging, at a globally unprecedented rate, the public and private sectors are working together to establish a society of healthy health and longevity. Moreover, the coronavirus has also led to rapid changes in the healthcare needs and delivery, owing to which there have been major innovations and research and drug discoveries to treat cancer and other genetic diseases. So these all, add to the market growth drivers. And also the government has been putting in efforts to develop genome editing technology, and also has increased the funding for genomic medicine and research. So Japan's economy, trade and industry ministry had allocated nearly 77 million US dollars for the years 2016 to 2020, which improved the development for treating stubborn diseases such as AIDS, hemophilia, and to modify crops and livestock genetically. And also in 2018, the Japanese government designated somewhere around 11 core hospitals for cancer genomic medicine and somewhere around 100 cooperative hospitals for the same. If we see the cancer country profile of Japan, as per WHO, cancer has been the leading cause of death in Japan for more than 30 years, and the mortality rate is further increasing year by year. On the other hand, tremendous efforts has been made in clarification of etiology, prevention and treatment of cancers. And the reason, I think, for this apparently contradictory phenomenon is that many cancer etiology studies have been done on the US or the European people. However, a study on Japanese people was reported only quite recently, say some 5 years ago or so. The study results actually suggest that 50% of the cancers are preventable. And owing to the dietary habits in cancer development, has been pointed out by the epidemiological studies, and as per WHO studies, as you can see here, colorectal, stomach and lung cancers are the leading cause for the high mortality rate in Japan. And hence increasing prevalence of cancer also acts as a growth driver for Japan's genomic market. In Japan, with the rapid changes in genomic medicine and the establishment of a delivery mechanism within the healthcare system, several issues need to be discussed. Like many genetic testing, counseling, and preventive healthcare programs are not covered by the public health insurance and hence pose a high medical cost outside of the national insurance for the patients. And also due to the aging population, there's a short of trained human resources for genetic counseling. In addition to these challenges, there are few more trade barriers to overcome, like cultural barriers, including the Japanese or the English language trade barriers. And this can severely affect the quality of customer service, relationship issues, and expectations among the partners and the distributors. Regulatory barriers, including licensing requirements, restricted goods, certification labels, or the labeling requirements, and more, are some of the challenges that the Japanese genomic market see. And if we talk about the regulatory pathway of the Japanese genomic market, as Japan has a compulsory national health insurance system, genetic tests are really not required there. At the moment, there are no laboratory standards regarding genetic tests as such. And Japan treats genetic tests that fall within the in vitro diagnostic medical device regulations as moderate to high risk and therefore generally require pre-market review. In Japan, there are no specific legal standards for genetic service laboratories, but they do have to comply with other regulatory factors. And I think more light can be thrown on this by the panel, following this presentation. Japan has a voluntary set of guidelines drawn up by the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, which is METI, and an industry organization. But this is not legally binding. The Ministry of Health, Labour and Welfare announced in 2016 that it would develop a framework for overseeing genetic tests, but there is not much information available on this as of now. So foreign manufacturers need to obtain a foreign manufacturer accreditation, which is FMA, from the Ministry of Health, Labour and Welfare to gain approval and market their products in Japan. So applicants should prepare the investigational new drug IND application document as per the common technical document or CTD format. Next on our list, we have China. The economy of People's Republic of China is a developing market-oriented economy that incorporates economic planning through industrial policies and strategic 5-year plans. Dominated by state-owned enterprises and mixed ownership enterprises, the economy also consists of a large domestic private sector and openness to foreign businesses in a system described as a socialist market economy. State-owned enterprises accounted for somewhere over 60% of the China's market capitalization in the year 2019 and generated somewhere around 40% of the China's GDP of 15.66 trillion US dollars in 2020. With domestic and foreign private business and investment, accounting for remaining 60% of the GDP. According to World Bank, China has the world's fourth largest economy when measured by purchasing power parity or PPP in the year 2020. And being the most populous country, China spends somewhere around 6.64% of its GDP on the healthcare and ranks third on the list of 190 countries for ease of doing business as per the World Bank. If we talk about the EU and China trade relationships, so China is now the EU's biggest trading partner, overtaking USA in 2020. So when China joined the WTO in 2001, it agreed to reform and liberalize important parts of its economy. While China had made progress, some problems still remain, like lack of transparency or the industrial policies and non-tariff measures that discriminate against foreign companies, or the strong governmental intervention in the economy, resulting in a dominant position for the state-owned firms, or poor protection and enforcement of intellectual property rights. And ultimately, all these add to the challenges of doing business in China. So if we talk about the market size, The Chinese genomic market size, as we can see here, the DNA sequencing market totaled of somewhere around 1.2 billion US dollar in 2017 and is expected to reach 4.89 billion US dollars by 2025, growing at a CAGR of approximately 19%. Whereas on the other hand, China's genetic testing market was valued at 2.76 billion US dollars in 2020 and is expected to grow at a CAGR of not less than the 18.9% to reach 4.33 billion US dollar by next 3 years. So this market size actually shows a significant scope in the market, and hence let's see what are the growth drivers for the Chinese genomic market. So China indicates that the central government funded about 40 million US dollars per year of genomic research through the National Science Foundation of China, the Chinese Academy of Sciences, and the two programs at the MOST, which is Ministry of Science and Technology in China. The bigger player or the biggest player on the Chinese genomic market, which is BGI, currently known as BGI Group or formerly known as the Beijing Genomics Institute, is a Chinese genomic sequencing company which is headquartered in Shenzhen. It performs the most cost-effective sequencing in China at a very competitive price of mere 100 USD. And every year, 4 million people in China are diagnosed with cancer, and in 2020, the country accounted for somewhere around 30% of the cancer-related deaths worldwide. So if we dwell deep into the cancer profile of China, in 2020, as I said, China accounted for 24% of newly diagnosed cases and 30% of the cancer-related deaths. As per WHO, lung, colorectal, and stomach and breast cancers are the leading cause of deaths among the others. While new genome sequencing technology is the only way to match the patient with life-saving personalized therapies. And there are now, more than 55 oncology therapies that require genomic CDX testing, and just 5% of China's cases are sequenced. Hence, posing another challenge in itself, but then, it also poses the lowering of the sequencing cost is also, in favor of it. So if we see some of the straightforward challenges of the Chinese genomic market, so language barrier is one of them. Lack of transparency in the processes is another. And as some of the case studies also showed, that the industrial policies and non-tariff measures discriminate against the foreign companies, as well as there is a shortage of biotech talent locally. And even when trying to bring the talent or the human resources from outside China, the procedures for applying for a work visa is very complicated, which makes it difficult to get the trained professional for the work. And poor protection and enforcement of intellectual property rights or complex industry regulations add to the challenges of the genomic market in China. If you see the graph or the chart here, getting the credit is also a challenge of the market, or paying taxes is a challenge for the market, or trading across the borders is also a challenge for this market. Moving ahead towards the regulatory pathway, since its initial participation in the Human Genome Project in 1990s, China has actively promoted genome research for purpose of medical care improvement and scientific advancement. The regulation of the use and sharing of data, however, is complex, and it diverges from diverse policy concerns. The Ministry of Health is regulatory health authority responsible for developing laws, regulations, and policies for cellular therapies in China. In 2009, the Ministry of Health classified cellular therapies as Category 3 medical technologies. And this category of medical technologies is considered to have the highest risk, pose ethical issues, and has not yet been scientifically proven for its therapeutic value. As such, before a cellular therapy product may be used, approval from a technical audit board is required in China. While the regulations governing the use of cellular therapies are still maturing, China has proposed draft guidelines and standards to help shape the future development of these therapies. And I'm sure that these draft guidelines would soon become the standards to be followed as the regulatory pathway in the country. So, our last market that we will talk about today is Australia. So, the economy of Australia is a highly developed mixed economy. And as of 2021, Australia was the 12th largest national economy by nominal GDP and the 18th largest by purchasing power parity adjusted GDP. And it was the 25th largest goods exporter and the 20th largest goods importer. The Australian economy is dominated by its service sector, which in 2017, comprised of somewhere around 63% of the GDP and employed somewhere around 79% of the labor force. And if we talk about the Australia and EU trade overview. So on 22nd May 2018, the Council of European Union adopted the decision authorizing the opening of negotiation for a free trade agreement between EU and Australia. So far, the EU and Australia have been conducting their trade and economic relationships under 2008 EU-Australian Partnership Framework. So this aims to facilitate trade in industrial products between the EU and Australia by reducing technical barriers and improving trade in the services and investment. The EU is Australia's second biggest trade partner, and bilateral trade in goods and services between the two partners has risen steadily in the recent years, as you can see from the graph. So, according to an impact assessment, trade in goods and services between the two countries could increase by around a threefold, where the trade negotiations of the free trade agreement, aim at removing barriers and helping EU firms, especially the smaller ones, to export more, and putting European companies exporting to or doing business in Australia on an equal footing with those countries that have signed up to the Trans-Pacific Partnership or other trade agreements with Australia. Ambitious provisions on trade and sustainable development, showing a shared commitment to labor rights and environmental protection in trade. And also, it aims at allowing EU companies to better participate in the government procurement in Australia. So if we talk about the market size, since Australia, has a multicultural society that has risen from continuing migration from various parts of the Asia Pacific, and while the population is relatively small, somewhere around just over 20.7 million, it is genetically diverse and is spread over a large landmass. The federal system of government is democratic and based on the states and territories, and there is a socialized healthcare system in Australia in which public and private models operate in parallel. So, as per the data, or as per the reports, the Asia Pacific genomic market, of which Australia is also a part, is expected to grow at a CAGR of 10.5%, reaching a mark of $5.41 billion US by 2025. The clinical genetics services in Australia are actually publicly funded by state departments of health rather than the Commonwealth government, with the model of service provision varying from state to state. Each of these factors has important implications for the effective delivery of genetic screening programs and clinical genetic service that meets the need of all the Australians. If we talk about the market growth drivers, the major factors driving the growth of this market include the increasing government funding to support the genomic projects, and the growing incidence of cancer also adds to it, and the increasing application of new genome sequencing technology in cancer research. And also the entry of new players and startups in the genomics market, and the growing application areas of genomics. All these factors add to the growth of the genomic market into the Australia. And when I say the increased government funding, so For example, the Genomics Health Future Mission, which is the centerpiece of Australian government's national health and medical industry growth plan. It has announced that it will invest, or the GHFM will invest somewhere around 500 million US dollars in genomic medicine research from a period of 2018-19 to somewhere around 2027 to 2028. And as per WHO report, breast, prostate, and colorectal cancers are the leading cause of the deaths, which is closely followed by lung and skin cancer, and hence the growing incidence of cancer, acts as a market growth driver. Moving ahead, if we talk about the market challenges of Australia, the responsibility of public healthcare in Australia is shared between state and federal, as I already mentioned, and hence the integration of clinical genomics requires a coordinated whole of a nation kind of approach based on a federal system. The Australian Genomics Health Alliance, or the Australian Genomics as it is called, is a collaborative research partnership of more than 80 organizations, including diagnostic laboratories, clinical genetics services, and research and academic institute in all, the 6 states and 2 territories of the country. So some of the inherent challenges in the Australian healthcare systems are fragmentation arising from the divide between the Commonwealth and the state funded services, or the complexities in funding, governance, and reporting arrangements, or the system inadequacies, or including workforce shortage and maldistributions. Adding to these, key challenges for the use of genomics in clinical care is the delivery of high quality information about the patient's genome that may inform the clinician about the diagnosis, prognosis, or treatment decision in the context of patient's clinical presentation. So poor linking poor linking of genomic information to the health records and managing large collection of sequence data over time is also a big concern here. Yeah, so if we talk about the regulatory aspect the regulatory framework in the Australian market, the regulatory framework governing the provision of genetic tests sits within the broader healthcare system. And under current Australian regulation, there is a strict regulatory regime governing the registration and provision of human genetic tests offered by Australian companies. The Australian healthcare system is largely regulated and partially funded at the state and territory level. However, the federal government also provides funding and has a regulatory role to play. So medical services are provided through both the public and private sectors, and public subsidies, like Medicare benefits are available for many services. In Australia, the use of test is regulated partially through funding incentives provided by the federal government, as you can see here. And the TGA, or the Therapeutic Goods Administration, is Australia's regulatory authority for therapeutic goods such as medicine, medical devices, and diagnostic tests, and their imports and exports facilities. So clinical trials and approvals are also done by the TGA in Australia. With this, I come to an end with the market overview of 5 different geographies. But to summarize, or to conclude, I would like to share that the field of genomics also has some good, bad, or ugly phases of its own, which definitely will help the growth of the industry as a whole. So if we see the genetic technologies nowadays are offering new solutions for disease control, prevention, and cure, and they are now being used to diagnose and treat complex diseases such as heart disease or asthma, diabetes, cancer, and to add the newly appeared coronavirus. So genetic technologies may soon allow us to eradicate malaria as well, the way we are trying to do it with COVID-19. Which is, malaria and COVID both are a major health menace in many developing or the developed nations, which is, the good phase of the genomics. Coming to the bad phase, I would say the high price tag of many genetic technologies mean that not everyone will benefit. The cost of gene therapies for rare diseases, or cancer as approved in the United States and Europe can range from somewhere around 373,000 to 1 million US dollar per patient per year, which is too costly for a normal person to afford. While genomics is shaping the future of medicine, the research is often targeted for certain population group in mind, especially the wealthy people who possess the ability to pay. So this is something a bad phase, I would say, for the genomic industry. From there, I think gene editing, since the new technologies are coming up and the sequencing cost has gone down, or with the advent, with the discovery or with the boom in the CRISPR technology. So gene editing has actually opened up Pandora's box. While it presents great hopes for curing disease and eliminating hunger, gene editing is still imprecise, which could lead to inadvertent and undesirable changes to a genome. And there are also concerns, regarding the unknown or the long-term safety of gene editing, because we really have not thought about it. And I think that is something which will bring out the ugly phase of the genomic industry. To conclude, I would say the countries will need to find an appropriate balance between incentivizing advances in genetic technologies and managing their intended benefits and unintended consequences, because every action has a consequence, and we have to take that. So the balance will rest on the three pillars, I think, which is consent and privacy, and the information sharing and intellectual property rights, and the ethical boundaries around it. So with this, I conclude my presentation. I will leave the discussion to the experts from the various economies to discuss and comment on the market scope further. Thank you.
Thank you, Parthvi, for this presentation. Of course, this is an overview, and we are aware that this is really dense for all of you. And that's why we will forward you the presentation, of course, so you can check it up in details, especially on the regulatory aspects. Now that we will have, and Parthvi, thank you for your, because it was a challenge in 1 hour to do five markets. Congratulations, and you have a lot. We have a lot to say for each market. So I have to admit that I was really impressed by the flow. But anyway, as I say, we will forward you the presentation, so we can have any the one that, if you didn't have so much time to look at it, you can take your time at home and especially target the market that is interesting for you. Parthvi, to conclude, what do you think would be for you? In studying these 5 markets, what potential of growth were the one? What were the one with the most potential of growth? What do you think?
So if you ask me that question, I would definitely be a little biased, because I have been studying this for a long time now. But honestly, I try to place the geographies, in the flow wherein I think has the most potential, or should be explored. But I don't want to manipulate people here, or I want to give a biased opinion on that. So I would leave that opinion, or I would leave that what do you say, the idea, to the companies who would like to explore the market. So whatever information I could gather, or from my experience, I have all put in to the presentation. But I think definitely Singapore is also one of the good markets, or I would say, since US is the most developed nations, has a huge opportunities in that, and definitely China is growing. And again, I would say Australia is a developing market, and then again it poses the good growth opportunities. So every market has its own pros and cons, I would say. So it's a good idea to evaluate before one can decide on which market to take forward from there.
Yeah, okay. Well, you're right, actually. It's hard to choose one, especially. But the aspect is just about to have identified the right challenges and the right opportunities for each market. So this was an overview. Now we'll have a panel discussion with the more concrete aspects of each of these markets, with the input from people that have experienced it, that know it. And for that, I will welcome Sachin Gaur. Sachin Gaur, are you with us?
Hi, Alexis.
Hi, how are you, Sachin?
Yeah, I'm fine. Excellent program today. I was just attending since the beginning. So thank you.
Thank you for being here with us. So we had this overview with part V. We had this overview. So what would be really interesting, I think, for the public, for the audience here, would be to have a more in-depth analysis on the challenges of each of the markets and the practical experience from the people speaking here and that have already experienced the business there. So. I don't know if the rest of the panel members are present with us. I think, yes, they are.
Yes, they are. They are.
Okay, so I let you the floor now, Sachin Gaur. You are the moderator. This is a huge responsibility, but I'm pretty sure you will handle it.
And thank you, Alexis.
And yes, let's try to be as practical and as clear as much as possible on each of these markets. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I'll try to do my best job. And let me, with that, invite Professor Rika Lund. If you are there, if you could switch off your camera.
Hello.
Hello. Malshri Pandey, if you are there. Hello. Nidhi Gani. If you could switch on your camera. Hello, Tomoko.
Hello. Yes, sir. Just a bit.
So, hello everyone. A warm welcome to all of you. I'm really happy that my panel is having 4 amazing women. So we are in a way contributing very positively also to the gender balance. I hope, Alexis, that makes you happy that your program is having some amazing women here. And we are joined by Professor Rika Lund from Finland, from Turku. You already have got some introduction about Turku. And Rika is heading the Finnish Functional Genomics Center, which is a national core facility with a mission to support high-level research in Finland. She also has a research group focused on understanding how genetic and environmental factors influence development and lifelong health of an individual. And their unit is hosted by University of Turku and Abo Academy University. And they belong to the National Biocenter Finland Infrastructure Network. So a warm welcome to you again, Rika.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, and next we have is Tomoko. Tomoko is coming from Japan. Tomoko, which city you are in Japan?
Yes, I am.
No, which city?
Oh, near Tokyo, not exactly in Tokyo, suburb of Tokyo.
Yeah, it must be late evening for you, so I'm really grateful that you could join us. And Tomoko has conducted over 500 market research and landscape studies over the long experience that she has. So she really understands how sales works in Japan, and especially with the pharma sector. And I really hope that Tomoko could add a lot of cultural aspects today to our understanding, because in the previous presentations we have heard that people are highlighting some topics about Japan. Maybe Tomoko can throw more light on that. So a warm welcome to you again, Tomoko. Thank you for joining us. and Molchri, who I also happen to know for many, many years. And a warm welcome to you again, Molchri, from Singapore. And Molchri is the global head of for life sciences and healthcare practice at eValueServe, which is a leading consulting company. She's based out of Singapore, and in her current role, she's responsible for providing strategic direction to the global team with focus on year-on-year growth by achieving operational excellence. And since I said I know her for many years now, previously she used to work in the Danish embassy in India, and she was helping a lot of Danish companies to come to India. So she has actually dealt with a lot of European companies, and I could really say that she's one of the person who knows both parts of the world really, really well in that sense. So a warm welcome to you, Molchri. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Sachin. Thank you.
It must be also late evening for you, so thanks again. And then we next have Nidhi. Welcome to you, Nidhi. And Nidhi's representing the USA market. And also I had the pleasure to meet Nidhi in past. So it's good to see you again. And she's a biotechnologist and a regulatory affairs professional in drugs, biologics, and medical devices. She works for ICAD, which is the world's first breast cancer detection and prediction using AI/ML. And she's working there as a cybersecurity and data privacy lead, which we know are important topics these days. And she's passionate about future life science technologies, precision health, and healthcare policy and business. We also saw in Parthi's slides that breast cancer seemed to be the most widely prevalent cancer in US. So I think we can really benefit from Nidhi's expertise here. So warm welcome to you, Nidhi, again.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks, Sachin.
Yeah. So I think we can make it very interactive. And I saw that Professor Rika was joining early. So I think she also heard the presentations from the SMEs. I was very impressed by them. What do you think, Rika, about it?
Yes, I'm from the academic sector from myself, and I found them extremely interesting and fascinating to hear that the field is going forward so fast.
Yeah, we should complement the GEN.ERA project and also the startups. So let me start the first question with you because, in a way, you could also represent Europe here, or maybe more specifically Finnish market. So in your opinion, when you are looking at it, so what is the potential for European companies in your eyes? And the market that you represent, if you would like to say specifically a few words about, the Turku region or maybe even wider in terms of genomics, life sciences, because you're heavily involved in research, because this may also give a perspective to our other experts in the panel that what you see in this part of the world. So over to you, Rika.
Yes, so at the moment where I see the strongest potential is in the healthcare. So there would be need for products or services that would enable flexible and cost-efficient analysis of genetic variants associated with diseases or causing diseases, and also to characterize the or screen the drug responsiveness of the individuals to have the optimal drugs in use. And in particular, there would be need for IT tools. I think there is not much competition in that field at the moment, and especially such IT tools that enable use and interpretation of the whole exome sequencing, and in particular whole genome sequencing data, and transfer of that knowledge to healthcare. That's something that is needed and emerging. And of course, there can be lots of potential for radical innovations which are difficult to envision here. But in Finland, for example, we have this genomic strategy established by the ministry, and we are genotyping 10% of the population, or have already genotyped. So that will increase also in Finland our knowledge of the genomes and genetic variation in association to diseases. So I think there will be lots of new opportunities from that as well.
Yeah, thank you, Rika. And maybe next I go to Molchri with the same question. And Molchri would be happy to know that both the startups that pitched, they showed interest in Singapore market. So, so maybe they are also, eager to listen from you. So if I ask you the same question, what are the salient points of the genomics market in Singapore? What are the top ideas that come to your mind?
So thank you, Sachin. And I think, Singapore, again, though it's a small market, but at the same time, given in terms of, if we go back to the presentation that Parthavi gave, we're talking about a 25% CAGR, growth in next few years. And what I would like to first highlight before I go to salient points is that it's not just the industry which is driving this growth, but the government in itself is extremely focused on making this a success. There are 10-year plans with very focused and dedicated funds working towards building this this whole genome program by the Singapore government. There are a lot of corporates which are funding some of these researches. So there is huge scope. Now, if I talk specifically about salient features, I think as mentioned earlier, IT tools is something which is very, very critical here, given that Singapore does not have that kind of scale or IT infrastructure to support the data that is generated through genomic research. So every time there is a project that the government picks up, there is the first key point here is to look at how to solve the problem of data. Right. So of course we've managed to solve that, or the government has managed to solve that by setting up or partnering with some of the largest providers in the market. But this is one of the biggest challenges. Apart from that, I honestly don't see there are challenges. I see that this is a market for market full of opportunities, both from the consumer point of view as well as from the research and innovation point of view. And I mean, when we talk further, I can go on detail and talk about what are these things. But I can maybe talk about some of the examples, like hospitals are already using these technologies to treat patients or to identify issues. So the genetic services at the KK Women Hospital, so it's a women's hospital and a children's hospital here, they're providing clinical care to pediatric patients with genetic disorders. There is a program called as Bridge, bringing research, innovation, genetic disease in Singapore. They treated about 412 families, where they analyzed over the last 6 years, what are the rare diseases in children. So, and out of those, 160 children were found with some rare and undiagnosed condition, which now they're able to solve. So some of these things are quite ahead of what other markets may be experiencing. And as I said, there is a huge backup by government and focus by government. So there is a lot that any company that would want to set up a business or would want to explore this market in terms of research and innovation should definitely leverage this market.
Thanks, Molchri. I think what we hear from Rika, in terms of like state-funded, genotyping of the population, what we see here in Europe is that some countries are ahead of the curve. So we know that Estonia has done this already, and Estonia is a neighboring country to Finland, and now Finland is doing it. And we know already, much before that UK had the lead. So I think what we see definitely that this idea of population level genetics is spreading now in Europe. And what we hear from you is that Singapore is an early adopter to many of these because of this planning-driven approach, going 10 years into the future. I think that is definitely a big potential here. And I think Parthavi also highlighted the free trade agreement. So definitely there are a lot of key points. And I know some of the Nordic countries that they have a lot of offices in Singapore as well. So in your erstwhile role, I guess, with Denmark, you would probably attest to that. So definitely, I think it's a good starting point. But we can go more in depth. Let's hear from others as well. So Tomoko, in your eyes, what are the salient points from the Japanese market?
Actually, the government is putting huge amount of funding on these genetic areas, as well as there are quite many small startups happening. But at the same time, the cost is always important, because the national health, we are covered by the national health services, which we pay only 10 to 30%, depending on the age group. So the government is always concerned about the cost of the treatment itself. And because of that, until the treatment is involved with the accepted as a guideline or standard the treatment, the patient has to pay out of their own pocket, which is really causing a lot of issues. But also because of the price for the genetic is really quite expensive, so that already the government has been discussing about how they can manage to reduce the cost. So that the cost is always an important issue. And also the sharing issue is that Japanese doctors tend to be very concerned with the safety rather than the benefit. So as a result, they tend to follow what KOL, key opinion leaders say, or how they treat patients. And until they feel safer, the smaller hospitals or even other doctors try not to adapt new technology. So we tend to be very, in that sense, Japanese doctors tend to be very conservative. So you need to be patient to make KOL to understand why the new technology is better than the old system. I think that's the important issue. The newcomer has to really figure out who you talk with. The KOL is key.
Yeah, thanks, Tomoko. I hear two important keywords from you. One is the cost, and I can also attest to this working with a lot of European SMEs, especially the Western European companies. They have a business model where the state pays for their technology. So they are not always very cost sensitive. So when we were dealing with them, especially in a market like India, which is very cost sensitive, that was the biggest hurdle, that we had to face, that in Europe, when you're selling something, the volumes are not very high. So companies try to, maximize, their, money back by, charging more. But when we look at Asia, where volumes are much more, the cost has to come down. So that was the first kind of very important observation for me, working with Finnish companies or other European companies, that one has to adjust the cost. And I think what you also mentioned about this key opinion leader, maybe this is also a kind of a thing that we can say in the Oriental markets. Relationships are very important.
Very much.
How do you kind of build a network on the ground? And I think it's not probably very straightforward for, let's say, in a European SME, but I think they need to be present on the ground.
Yes.
They need to meet people. And especially for a smaller player in Europe, which always may not be feasible, because they fear the travel. So I think these are definitely what you have highlighted are very important challenges, and I think others will also agree with me. So thanks Tomoko for that. Let me now move to Nidhi. So how is US looking at genetics, Nidhi? What do you see as salient points or challenges?
As we know that US has always been the hotbed of innovation. So in fact, US actually recently approved a next-gen sequencing COVID test also by Illumina company. And in US, there are already a few companies which have gone IPOs and are doing really well with like a very huge $1 billion evaluation. So definitely, I would say that US currently is the hotbed for genetic engineering and also genome for that matter. And the other part is sure, there are ethical and dignity related questions when it comes to editing genes. But from the business standpoint, I think US is US is a country which has been always business friendly and very open to accepting new technologies. And so FDA has set pathways right now from medical device standpoints, biologic standpoints, and most of them are falling towards medical devices, which means the approval timelines are also quite faster, 90 days or so, depending on, 90 days is like very, very positive, but yeah, there is that scope. And US is seeing a lot of, there are a lot of health benefits, and right now they're targeting towards liver diseases, eye diseases, sickle cell anemia, and a few cancers also. But again, the cost of treatment itself is very high, and US is not a universal healthcare country. So that way the cost is definitely that's something to keep in mind. But having said that, the cost of doing business itself, I think, is relatively low and easier, because in US you can come join an accelerator, and then you have so many different opportunities when you're with accelerators that you build a whole network there when you're just in that community. So there's a lot of community building for innovations and business innovations, or researchers, or anybody for that matter. So I think going by that way, the future is definitely bright. And because it's a Democrat-run government at this point, it's also, I wouldn't see it as much conservative as it would have been otherwise.
Thanks, Nidhi. I think there is probably more details on this topic that we can come in the next round. But I want to go back to Rika, and I am sure you must be making or taking notes in your head, when these market experts are talking from different markets. So looking at Finnish companies or European companies in general, what do you think, listening to these experts, in your opinion, the strengths or weakness that come to your mind, Rika?
Strengths and weaknesses in
going to the markets abroad. Of course, there are some cultural aspects, that how easy for a Finn to catch a flight and willing to travel. I know that sometimes that can be hard to convince them. Maybe it's easier to go to Sweden than to go to Japan or Australia. But I just want to know, from your experience working at research, do you see some inherent strengths? Of course, you all already highlighted in a way that now that you have population level genetics data, maybe that's infrastructural strength that you may have. But any strengths and weaknesses that you find in European SMEs?
This is not really my area of expertise, the business area, but I think strengths are, of course, there are lots of opportunities in the global market, as we heard, and the volumes outside Europe are really, really high, and the expertise level in Europe seems to be very high. So I think those are the strengths. Highly educated people and experts we have. Threats, of course, are the high competition, but on the other hand, that's the threat for all the business. So there are now lots of emerging opportunities coming all the time, and we have this 1 million genome project which has been launched in Europe, which will also help us to generate lots of new information. And this accumulating information, if you are at the cutting edge of the knowledge, helps us to develop these activities and opportunities.
In one of the forums I was attending, somebody was making a joke. They were saying that US innovates, China copies, and EU regulates. So in my opinion of the critics that I have seen of the genomics market in EU, that, for example, US has already for many years had genetically modified crops, and GM crops, let's say, are not allowed in EU. So one of the strong, let's say, critics of EU, they say that, in terms of the regulatory environment, the European landscape is very conservative. So in my opinion, if you are an innovator in Europe and you are working on something which is, let's say, a bit controversial, maybe it may not be accepted as easy or as fast within Europe. Whereas, let's say, when we heard from Molchri, where government is, looking to be an early adopter, maybe the same technology could be, easily, tried and tested in a distant market. So in my opinion, that could also be one reason, because, Europe is many countries. So Finland may have a different regulatory regime, France may have a different regulatory regime. But I think this regulatory aspect is definitely, I would say, a bit of struggle in my eyes, that how Europe is looking at the genetics topic, but maybe there is more to do. But at the same time, I think this investment in population level genomics is a very good achievement, I would say, building biobanks. And this is what, let's say, not many countries have done till date. So if I don't know if you want to react to this, or should I go to other panelists?
No, I fully agree. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So Molchri, coming back to you again on this topic of European companies, and since you have wore multiple hats in past, also looking at European companies, now that you are in Singapore, what kind of companies that you would like to welcome?
So I think, as I said, at all stages of development, the companies which exist would be more than welcome in Singapore. And as you rightly said, if I look at Europe right now, and if I look at where Singapore is, so there are a lot of similarities that you can draw. And it's very important for a new business or an innovative business to be able to pack bags and travel this far. Right? So it's very difficult to find that kind of synergies in the market. So one, as you said, that the genomic database. So as I mentioned earlier, Singapore is the only country which has like the largest Asian database for genetic database, right? So if you want to do research on Asian population, if you need that kind of data, you're more than welcome to set up here. At the same time, if you need space, there is a lot of space. So if you look at Agency of Science and Technology in Singapore, they have a huge technology park here where, again, as we're talking about incubators and accelerator platforms, some fantastic environment to, help you build your product in this, in this sort of environment. So you have that also. Then if it is about commercialization of products, I think the world is still, as a whole, still a little bit behind commercialization. So we're still pretty much at a research stage. But again, when it comes to commercialization, as I said, hospitals have already started using it. So it's not so badly regulated or so unethical to sort of start using genetic technology for at least healthcare purposes in Singapore. Now, at the same time, what I also want to highlight is that it's an attractive destination for European countries also because, you find it's strategically located, and that's why most of the Asian or Asian market is served through the Singapore headquarters. So this becomes a hub for pretty much every company across the globe. You mentioned about European Union Singapore Free Trade Agreement, so that's an advantage as well. I also feel the friendly foreign investment policies, as I'm saying, so it also makes it very, very attractive. The legal system, I think, which the European companies will be able to appreciate. So if it's a novel idea, you don't want your idea or your patent to get infringed in whichever way. So again, this is a very, very safe market. Overall, there is clarity, there is predictability of legal system. And on top of it, there is a lot of investment, as I mentioned. If I talk about, Facebook, so recently there is it's called Genome Institute of Singapore, which is funded by the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative here. And again, they are also supporting this initiative. So all in all, it's a place where, if you look at the complete value chain of a product, I think Singapore will be able to host pretty much all kinds of European innovations.
Thanks, Molchri. I wish you could also be the ambassador of Singapore. You made a very convincing pitch on behalf of Singapore. So I hope that the people who are listening, they definitely try. And of course, as I said, that they are also interested. So let's hope there is some success coming out here. But now we go to Tomoko, and Tomoko, in a way, you already answered this question about the strengths and weakness. But what, in your eyes, I believe you have dealt probably in past also with a lot of European companies. So what do you see as strength and weakness of European businesses when they come to Japan?
Well, unfortunately, one thing people do not feel comfortable is that the Japanese company or Japanese people tend to be very collective decision-making process, which takes time to make a decision. It doesn't mean Japanese government or Japanese companies are not interested in, but it takes time more than like Korea or Singapore or America. That's why many European companies think Japanese people are not interested in, but it's not true. You need to be patient. That's all you need. Sometimes because of the small, especially SMEs, they don't have much time, so that's why they can't wait. But it's important to think, make it having good relationship first to make to have the good relationship, as well as understanding the Japanese decision-making process is a collective decision-making from bottom to up, not up to down. So that it may take longer than people expect. So just plan longer than just 1 year or half a year. That's something people have to bear in mind.
Sure. Thanks, Tomoko, for these points. And you would be happy to hear that, when we were doing a bit of investigation, we found that one of the earlier projects, which was called as BioX Cluster, it was mentioned on the GEN.ERA website. So they have been organizing a lot of missions to Japan. At least on their website, they mentioned they have organized 8 missions to Japan from Europe of SMEs. So maybe from that project, they have a lot of practical experience, and they highlight something called as Europe-Japan Research Center, which is like a physical entity in Japan. And they seem to be probably a knowledge center in a way. And I have seen that there were some webinars organized by them recently. So maybe through this, discussion to the people listening, we can also point to them that, they could investigate what BioX Cluster did and what Europe-Japan Research Center is doing. So maybe that could be a resource. But I totally agree with your point, and let's now move to Nidhi. So Nidhi, in your eyes, when you look at European SMEs, what do you think of them? Strengths, weakness, what comes to your mind? Have you dealt with any European SMEs in US already, or any experiences that you would like to share?
Yeah, so I think with European, the work ethic is really good. So that I think is their strength, and also they have good expertise. Because I've dealt with Europe SMEs, not with healthcare, but with software, because when I was working at the Harvard Innovations Lab, we had there were like 2-3 companies which were European-led companies, and their working style was very different, very chill and happy-go-lucky, but still achieved a lot. So I think that's the kind of culture that US would really appreciate, especially after COVID. The other part of US, which could be perceived positive or negative, is that there's cutthroat competition because, especially in Massachusetts, where I live, Howard and MIT universities, every lab can spin out by itself as a startup. So which means that the competition is cutthroat, but it also means that there's a lot of validation that yes, the market is now opening and anybody can step in. And the other thing is that if there is another company that would come in and innovate better than already existing company, it's a little bit easier for the US market to switch towards that product. So that this is just from the consumer behavior that I think that would be one of the routes to take. But apart from that, for European companies to come into US, I'm not sure how their visa works, but I would say that they should participate in different boot camps. Like there are MIT Harvard boot camps, there are Stanford boot camps. There are many different boot camps like these wherein they could come and network, stay for 6 months to 1 year, network and build connections, and also like get initial fundings where they can start. The other part is when we think about biologics, which would be genome editing, and so we only think about research. We don't think about all the consumables and synthetic biology that would come into picture, because who's going to manufacture all the artificial DNA that these guys are working on? That is by itself a whole separate market, and that would need to scale up. So manufacturing also would come into picture there. So there are these separate units, and the best part is it's not like you have to build like a full-fledged company where you're owning everything from research to direct to consumers, right? There are like bits and parts of it. So you have separate research labs and manufacturing units, which would also scale up using AI and machine learning, or who would just come up with bacteria eating genes or editing genes or whatever. So there are many different segments of the market that people could find their vertical in and really grow into that market. So that way, I think there's a lot of scope there.
Yeah, I think what you mentioned, in a way is my next question about this institutional support, because US is a very, very big market. You have so many time zones, and, like you also hinted at a different style of working. I think you work very long hours. In Europe, people work, like 9 to 5, or I would say in Finland, it's 37 hours a week. And, I'm in Norway right now, so it's the same here. And then we have summer holidays, and then we have Christmas. So it's a very different way of looking at life, the way you look at in US. So I don't know if Europeans start working more when they go to US, or they still work the same. But if somebody lands in US, they take a flight today. Should they land in JFK, or should they land in San Francisco? Which part of the country do you think is more ripe for this?
I would say Massachusetts. It is the place to be right now, be it with healthcare, be it with digital health or software. Obviously, San Francisco has been leading, and Seattle, I think the West Coast has been doing really well. But other part is even, SF also is a very ripe market if you look at it from genome standpoint. But Massachusetts is a very ripe market with respect to, be it from venture capitalist or even from university standpoint, talent standpoint. And it's a very small city to live in, very expensive, but very small city to live in. So it's very easy to network also. So I think that from that standpoint, East Coast is definitely Massachusetts and there.
So in general, when people build, companies that they want to build like a unicorn very fast, they normally apply for Y Combinator in US. Yeah. Right, and if you get selected in Y Combinator, that's your ticket to build a $1 billion company. Is there a similar incubation program that comes to your mind that you would like to share, because you have been with Harvard before? And
there is something to Mass Health, I think, is one of them. I can give you a list, because there are many like these which I see people participating back and forth. So
I think people at the GEN.ERA project maybe will appreciate because a lot of this, what you're talking, probably makes a lot of sense for people who are planning their first trip abroad. Mm-hmm. So where should they go? It could be a fact-finding mission. But yep. Thanks for sharing all these wonderful resources, Nidhi. So now I go back to Tomoko again. So Tomoko, you heard Nidhi and she spoke about particular cities and, universities. So is there anything specifically that you would like to highlight in Japan? Because Japan again is something for people a bit mysterious in some ways at times, because, of course, many people will think Tokyo as first, but where should someone go first, or any specific pointers there?
There are some areas where the local governments decided to make a biocenter, which is one of them is Kobe with Osaka. At the same time, Tokyo area bigger mean not Tokyo municipal or anything. It's but bigger. Imagine bigger than Tokyo, but there's lots of universities and cities gathered together by them. There seems to be getting more communicating each other to give some information about making kind of center for the bio-related industries as well, because nowadays not only Kyoto universities or city in Kobe are funding for the startups for the bio areas, but also Tokyo University decided to make their own venture fund for the startups. So and smaller, also there's some universities and areas near Tokyo are doing the similar things. So that it used to be probably Kyoto or Kobe be better area, or Osaka area is better, but now Tokyo is also quite attractive because so many big pharmaceutical companies decided to move their headquarters from Osaka to Tokyo, including Takeda Pharmaceuticals. Their research center is in Tokyo area, not in the Tokyo, but Tokyo area, so that the research centers with Tokyo universities and some other universities are kind of doing that. So Tokyo has become attractive again, I would say.
Yeah, thanks, Tomoko. And I can also share with you that I have been going many years to Estonia, and I have always found one stand there from Japan. It's called Startup Fukuoka. So they have been promoting themselves aggressively in Estonia, but I'm not saying for biotech, but in general. So definitely there are some regions which are trying to actively promote. But if you could also share with us offline, maybe later, if you find something interesting. And I think the European Japan Research Center, they also in their webinar mentioned about Osaka and other places that you have also highlighted. So going back to Malshri, you already hinted on A-star. So yeah. Anything else that you would like to highlight, in Singapore that one could take advantage of?
Sure. So there are two bodies. One is called Enterprise Singapore, and the other one is called the Singapore Business Federation. And they provide opportunities to SMEs from various parts of the world to collaborate and work towards internationalization programs. So these two could be interesting places to start with. At the same time, because having worked with the embassy and the diplomatic mission, so I do know that until last year at least, there used to be something called as EU Business Avenues in Southeast Asia. And this was an EU-funded initiative helping European companies to establish long-term business relationships in Singapore, Vietnam, Malaysia, Philippines, and some of these countries. The program has ended, but I'm pretty sure because it was part of a EU Gateway and Business Avenue, program. So there could be certainly more coming up in future. So we need to just keep an eye on something like this. And most of these programs are pretty much free of cost because that's the mandate for them to help EU companies to find international markets for themselves. At the same time, I also think that there are some of interesting PE investors and fund houses, and private fund houses, which could be very interesting for European companies. So one of them that I can immediately think of is Novo Holdings. They have a huge office here, and they are investing aggressively, especially within healthcare and AI and genomics and technology, basically in this space. So Novo Holdings could be a very, very interesting place to also look at. I think these are the places. Plus, there are organizations which are very open to collaborations, like National University Hospital, National Cancer Center Singapore, or Singapore Transnational Cancer Consortium. Places like these which are also open to collaboration. But as a SME, some of the initial ones that I spoke about, I think they could be a very, very good start.
Yeah. Thanks, Malshri. And Rika, for you, I have a very different kind of question now, because I'm not going to ask you about something which is out of your scope. But since you have been a researcher, and I know that in Turku area, there's a lot of applied research happening. So how often do you see that something that you do in the lab becomes a company? Or is there a method to this madness? So if you would like to say a few words about it.
Oh, Teppo would be better to answer to that question, as well, as I don't see that part.
Okay, because I saw in Teppo's slides that he was proudly showing many companies, which were, kind of becoming successful.
Yes.
But, when we had the offline conversation, you kind of mentioned that when you pick research topics, in a way, they capture the requirement of the society.
Yes, so I would say that if we think about the new technologies and methods which we apply in service use, I would say that most of those are developed in USA, and then we start to provide those as a service, and we implement those in service use based on the needs of our known and potential users, and it involves lots of knowledge exchange and communication with different stakeholders. So that's the way we operate. But in our organization or our unit, we don't develop that much new technologies or methods.
Okay, but I mean, your physical location with Turku Science Park, are you like close by, and is it like normal to collaborate with each other?
Yes, that's one of the very good cons of the Turku Science Park, because we are in the close proximity with the university units and also the hospital, and then we have lots of these companies there as well, and we do also collaborate with all these sectors. With both hospital and companies. Many of the projects are confidential, so it's difficult to share the details, but
yeah, I think that's fine, but yes. I can say it to others, because I visited Turku physically. I think Turku has this kind of structural design which kind of brings all the collaborators together, and probably that's one reason that why you are successful with innovation. Yes. Other region that comes to my mind in Sweden is Uppsala, which is similarly organized in that way, that they have hospitals, they have university, they have incubators. And I think Singapore, by design is a small place, so it so happens that everything is so close by. And I think the same structural elements of success are in MIT or in Harvard region, because they have organized everything. And I'm sure I've never visited Japan, but I'm sure Tomoko would agree that all innovative regions, kind of similar recipe to bring people together to collaborate and share ideas. But let me stop the discussion here, and we can go back to Alexis, because I'm sure me picking your brains and trying to unlock some ideas, there are probably more people interested in speaking or asking questions directly. So Alexis, over to you. I'm done with this part of the panel for now.
Hello.
Thank you everyone.
Hello, thank you everyone. Can you hear me?
Thank you.
Yes?
Yep, very friendly.
Thank you all, because I think it was really, really interesting. I mean, we learned obviously a lot of things about specific trends, specificities of each of the markets. What I would like to ask you, some of you, is that, for instance, as you know, we are treating small markets, big markets. If I take, for example, we have Singapore, which is rather small, and you have the US, a big one, China, a big one in terms of population, etc., etc. So the idea when you are SME in Europe is that if you want to operate in Asia, you need to find a place where you can network everywhere. So my question is for Molshri. Molshri, you were talking about Singapore as a good place to do some business, but if, for instance, I want to operate also in China, I'm a SME and I come in Singapore, is it something possible?
Yes, quite possible, because again, Singapore and China share, a great trade and bilateral relationship. So there should not be a problem. In fact, as eValueCell, the company that I work for, so we have offices in China and Singapore, and we work very, very closely. And I can pretty much manage everything from here for my China office also. So it's very easy, very much possible. Even during the COVID times, I know that we have the travel lanes which were open. So all of this counts when you think about doing business. Yeah, in short, it is possible.
Okay, no, that's good to know, because it's also a saving cost in terms of resources. If you can just travel to one spot, it's always better.
And if I can add, it's not only China, it's most of the Asian market that you can capture from here, as I mentioned earlier also. And one of the biggest reasons for this is that Singapore is able to control 40% of maritime trade, due to its location. So that's why I think it makes it easier for Singapore to manage pretty much all the Asian countries from here, and that's why most of the companies, if they want to have a headquarter in Asia, it is Singapore.
Okay, I understand better. I have also another question. It was more specific about Tomoko in Japan. Tomoko, so you said 1 year is a delay to start doing business with the Japanese, correct?
Depend upon what kind of business and what kind of relationship prior you have, and depending upon what kind of the information or services you are looking for, or the Japanese people are interested in. So I can't say 1 year is enough or not enough, but it takes time to build a relationship first, because without having a good relationship, it takes more time to keep going forward. In generally speaking, even for Japanese living overseas, want to do the business with Japanese people in Japan takes time. And unfortunately, not many Japanese people can speak English, so that the understanding the different culture also takes time for Japanese people.
And Tomoko,
Japanese people have...
I'm sorry,
yes.
just a question, I'm sorry to cut you off. So what would be the best approach? If, for instance, who should I contact first? Should I contact directly the SMEs first? Should I contact clusters first? Should I contact public authorities first? What would be the best approach, do you think, if you want to do direct business with some entities in Japan?
Well, depends upon the business itself. So that then I can't say which way is the best. Try everything you can think about.
Okay.
And see how it goes. I think that's the best way. And sometimes some local government or some authorities are supporting the trade mission for instance. Then just join the trade mission. That makes people easy to access. But also many companies or many organizations have their own websites. So just email say that I'm interested in this kind of things. Where please let me know where to contact with. That kind of things is also helpful. So try everything you can think. I think that's the easiest.
The easiest is to try everything. That's actually it's a good answer. No, actually it's a good answer. It's good to know because in some markets it's preferable to go with this type of or other type of partner. We know that for Japan the most is to try almost what we can reach. Yeah, thank you, Tomo.
Sorry,
yeah.
Then I can say that if you know somebody, try to contact the person first and have got a referral. That's the best, actually. Otherwise, probably joining the trade mission might be the second good choice. Okay. If you can't identify the powerful person or referral or trade mission, then try everything you can think.
Okay, I see. Thank you for your lightning, and I have a specific question to Nidhi. Nidhi, are you with us? No?
Yeah, I'm
yes. Here. Yes, I have a specific question. It's regarding the US because, as you know, one of the barriers for European companies to do business overboard is that can be sometimes afraid of competitiveness. We are aware that in Massachusetts or in San Francisco, you have a lot of companies that can compete and that have some products and can be long, and you can spend a lot of resources trying to reach those markets, to gain those markets. So what would be your advice, and maybe to reassure some companies that are watching this presentation? What do you think would be the best asset of these SMEs, European SMEs, to face competitiveness, specifically in Massachusetts?
US is currently valuing diversity, so I think that is one of the biggest opportunities. But having said that, because there is competition, it means that everybody has opportunities, and the other part is language is not a barrier as much as it could be in other landscapes and regions. And the third part is really study every company, what each one of them is doing, what is their niche, and you try to find a vertical for yourself, find your niche. Or if you have a same product or a similar idea, make sure that you are somehow building it better. So that way, I think it'll really help you to stand out. The other part is because FDA is mostly going to look at how much accurately your tests are going to perform, how much more reliably your tests are going to perform. So say that there is a company which has 60% reliability and 70% accuracy. Try to move beyond that number somehow to make sure that you have a case for yourself. So these are some things. And if you have an idea which can club healthcare and software technology, then that will be like a very good field to be in, especially with health data right now. So that genome data, I would say, because privacy is a concern with genome data. So that also is something, because we live in a platform economy right now, just helping 2-3 different companies, or being that platform for different companies would give you that niche and vertical, wherein like that's where I think different companies can come into picture here, even though there might be a lot of competition already. So yeah, that would be my suggestion.
Your advice, okay, but thank you. It's a bit clearer now. I don't know if there is any other question in the assembly. Maybe some of the people here have some questions. No, there is no. Yes.
I may have. Can you hear me?
Yes, Teppo, we are here.
Teppo from Turku. Yeah, I have some comments. For Tomoko, I've experienced a little bit doing business with Japanese companies, and I underline that you have to be patient in order to get the final decision made. But once you have been able to get positive agreement, then you can trust that you are in a start of long-lasting and very trustworthy collaboration with Japanese. And then one question for Nidhi. We are now representing small companies, SME companies, even startup companies going abroad. So how do you think, does the company, for example, Finnish company, need a collaboration, a company in the US collaborating with our Finnish company in order to be successful?
Sorry. Okay. Yeah, so I think you can start with finding out different conferences and different competitions that can help you pitch. So that way you could build a good network, and be it with investors or be it with other resources that can help you out. The other part is, from what I'm seeing these days, is that the better talent you hire, the better they will help you network, like a chief strategist officer or somebody or a business development officer would really add value to your company, because these are the people who can reach out to bigger companies in US, like for example Regeneron and Vertex Pharmaceuticals. These are really big companies who are into genetics. So, and these bigger companies don't really invest a lot into R&D, but so that in that way, if you can reach out to these bigger companies and show them the right potential, so these bigger companies will very readily be able to collaborate with you for a better business proposal, or for a better outcome. So those I think are key for you to do. Hire a business development officer in the US and reach out to different companies.
Yeah. The companies in specifically in Turku area, we trust that we have very good innovations and good products. There is one big problem, is the scaling problem, because if we go, for example, to China's market, the markets are huge, the companies are small, and then the companies in Finland need investment in order to scale up their production, and that is a real problem that would need to have a partner from the for example, from Chinese market or Japanese market. But then to Molsri, one question related to Singapore. What is the best, is there a local partner needed? Thinking about small SME company from Finland coming to Singapore, how do you feel?
See, I mean, this is not only for Singapore, but I always feel that at least the Asian countries are different from the European market. I mean, we all know that, right? So in terms of culture, in terms of how we do business, or even, just very basics of when you shake hands or when you shake your head, are you saying yes or are you saying a no? So these are very simple cultural differences, which I believe can be taken care of if you have a local partner. Now, a local partner does not necessarily mean, at least in Singapore, a company per se, but someone who understands the basics of the market. It would always be helpful, at least in reaching out to the right people. Pretty much everyone speaks in English, but the English is different. So we call it Singlish here, right? So there is a bit of
we call it Finglish.
Yeah. So it could be a bit challenging for people to navigate or understand or communicate the right sentiments. And that is why I feel that if not really a company per se, because as per the rules and guidelines, things work just like that, right? Exactly what the rules are laid out, what is required. So that way there is no problem. But to navigate the cultural aspects and the language barriers, I think it would always be advisable to have a local person helping you do that.
Molshri, thank you for your input. And Tepo, thank you for your question. Unfortunately, we are pressed by the time and we have to interrupt this interesting panel discussion. And of course, keep in contact with you. If we have further questions, maybe we can send you some question. I just wanted to, first of all, I just wanted to thank Sachin for its work in moderating this session. Thank you all for accepting to a testimony regarding your respective markets. I just wanted to say that we'll have a break, and then there is the matchmaking session on the afternoon. Before we get back at 5 p.m. for greetings, I just wanted to thank GEN.ERA partnership, GEN.ERA partners and associate partners for this meeting. I want to thank also the quality of the speakers and the companies that have been presenting their technologies. And also, personally, I would like to thank Genopole team and the communication department for their help, because it was technically an important event, and everything went according to the plan. So I hope it was interesting for all the participants, and we'll forward you all the presentation so you can have a more, let's say, in-depth look at all the elements that were really important. Thank you very much, and don't forget to book your matchmaking for this afternoon. Thank you.